Warrior Lore. Chapter 2274. Please. Xiaohua's expression was indifferent. He nodded and followed the scholar up the stairs. Xiaohua originally thought that he would be able to reach the second floor, but who knew that the scholar would take him all the way to the fourth floor? The fourth floor was completely different from the first floor. As soon as he stepped on the stairs, he was greeted by a dark plum tree. The dark plum tree had a lot of branches and a huge crown. It seemed to cover the entire fourth floor. On the branches, between the green needle-like leaves, there were fist-sized dark plum blossoms that were as black as ink. The faint fragrance of the plum blossoms that seeped into one's heart unknowingly entered one's nose. What made Xiaohua's eyes light up the most was that the layers of snow on top of the dark plum tree were not obstructed, falling down and covering the emerald green. The three colors of snow white, emerald green, and pitch black were extremely striking, untainted, and extremely moving. Moreover, in this extremely quiet place, there was no other sound. The sound of falling snow was the main melody of the entire fourth floor. Seeing Xiaohua's shocked expression, the scholar was happy again. He knew that he had met a soulmate. He didn't make any sound and walked to a branch that was heavily pressed down by the snow. He pointed at the dark plum tree, and a black light flashed, revealing a door. The scholar said softly, "Fellow Taoist, this way please." His voice was extremely soft, as if he was afraid of disturbing the sleep of the snow. Okay. Xiaohua didn't hesitate and walked into the door first. Outside the door was another grotto heaven. It was a green grassland surrounded by a gurgling stream. Next to the stream was a huge mirror. Looking from the mirror, one could see the snowy scene of Century City covered in dark clouds. Tsk. Fellow Taoist really knows how to enjoy life. Next to the stream, there was a tea stove with a small fire boiling water. The steam was gurgling. A futon and a jade table were placed in front of the tea stove. Young master. Seeing that Xiaohua was the first to enter, the scholar also followed him in. The dozen or so robust men who were originally standing in front of the door immediately bowed and shouted, "Oh, these strong men." Xiaohua scanned them with his divine sense. He knew that the strong men's cultivation was different, but most of them were at the foundation establishment stage. There were even two at the foundation establishment stage. However, Xiaohua had a feeling in his heart. It was an effective and familiar feeling. However, if he were to describe it in detail, he might not be able to explain it clearly. The scholar waved his hand and said with a smile, "All right, you can all leave now. Young master, this cultivator's skills are very formidable. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to be here alone." The brawny man in the lead glanced at Xiaohua and spoke very bluntly to the scholar while bowing. See, that brawny man's gaze swept past Xiaohua. Xiaohua's heart trembled, not because of anything else, but because he seemed to feel that the brawny man's eyes slightly flashed like lightning, as if he suddenly had no emotions. "It's all right." The scholar smiled and said, "This fellow Taoist is an expert. He is the first person I've seen in my life. Didn't you see it just now? Walking alone in the snow, one step at a time. Which cultivator in the entire Sky Patrol City can do that?" "Young master." The brawny man still shook his head. "It's better to be safe than sorry." "Ha ha ha." Xiaohua laughed and gestured with his hand. "Fellow Taoist, I've already come. So why haven't you served the spirit tea yet? After talking for so long, I'm already thirsty." "Yes, fellow Taoist Xiao, please wait a moment." The scholar glared at the brawny man and quickly walked over. The brawny man waved his hand and the dozen or so people left, leaving only the two with the highest cultivation. Seeing that the scholar had come over, Xiaohua waved his sleeves and sat cross-legged on the grass beside the jade table. He looked up at the mirror beside him. Sure enough, the view here was very good. The scenery within a radius of several miles could be seen at a glance. In particular, the street that Xiaohua had just walked through was right below this tea house. Looking at the empty and white street, Xiaohua smiled. It was impossible for him to not attract people's attention by walking like this. He didn't know how many people had scolded him for being stupid along the way. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed carefree. Seeing that Xiaohua was sitting on the ground, the scholar's face showed excitement. He also waved his hand and moved the praying mat to the side, sitting on the other side of the jade table. In addition to a jade cup, there were several plates of spirit fruits on the jade table. The scholar took out a sparkling and translucent jade cup from his storage bag and placed it on the table. He reached out and picked up the tripod-shaped teapot on the small stove. Xiao Hua had already seen that this small stove was a magic tool, and the fire on the small stove was the true samadhi fire. "Fellow Taoist, please." The scholar personally tilted the teapot. A stream of water that was greener than grass and thinner than grass poured out from the teapot and fell into the jade cup in front of him. An indescribable fragrance suddenly drifted out from the spirit tea. Moreover, as far as the eye could see, the emerald green color in the jade cup rose little by little and finally turned into a piece of jade. Good. Although Xiao Hua wasn't particularly knowledgeable, seeing such an interesting scene, he couldn't help but clap his hands in praise. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please have a taste." The scholar poured the water for himself and raised his hand to signal Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua did not hold back. He extended his hand and picked up the jade cup. He blew on it a few times in a very habitual manner and took a small sip. Immediately, a faint sweetness flowed from his mouth into his heart and lungs. Then, the sweet aroma fermented and instantly filled his entire body. The most inconceivable thing was that he felt that his own origin spirit was about to be infected by this sweet aroma. "Another cup?" Xiao Hua couldn't help but put the jade cup on the jade table and said. When the scholar saw that Xiao Hua didn't use magic to drink tea like the others, his eyes lit up. When Xiao Hua blew on the spirit tea, he was even more delighted. When Xiao Hua drank it all in one gulp and asked him for more spirit tea, his heart was bursting with joy. He really hadn't seen such a cultivator. Didn't that cultivator put the spirit tea in his mouth with a flick of his hand? Which cultivator would care about the heat of the spirit tea? And which cultivator would be so impolite to ask for more? Alas, he still didn't know how stingy Xiao Hua was. Such a delicious spirit tea, naturally, he should drink more. If he could get the spirit tea seeds, that would be even better. The scholar's jade cup was already at his lips. He said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you still have to wait a bit. This fragrant demon can only be drunk 2 cups at a time. After half a meal's time, you can drink it again." As he said that, he also drank the spirit tea in small mouthfuls. Fragrant demon. Good. This name is really good. Xiao Hua put down the jade cup and said with a smile, "Just the name is good?" The scholar put the teapot on the cauldron again and said with a smile, "Is this tea not good?" Hee hee. This Xiao's mouth is clumsy and can't say anything to praise. However, this Xiao feels that this spirit grass is really much better than any spirit wine. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, if I have to praise it, then there is only one word, fragrant. If there are 5, then it is incomparable fragrant. Haha, fellow Taoist Xiao, that's 6 words. The scholar smiled and said with cupped hands, after talking for so long, "This little one still hasn't introduced himself. This little one is called Ziyi. May I ask for fellow Taoist Zhao's great name?" Seeing that Ziyi only reported his name and didn't reveal his origin, Xiao Hua understood in his heart that he was probably a direct descendant of some sect or family who came out to gain experience and didn't want to reveal himself. Ziyi? Good name. Xiao Hua was really jealous. He cupped his hands and said, "This little one is called Xiao Hua. This name is really vulgar." Xiao Hua. Ziyi raised his eyebrows. He hesitated for a moment and said with a smile, "Is your surname Xiao?" Xiao Hua scratched his head and said with a smile, "Of course my surname is Xiao. This Xiao doesn't have any other surname." Then, Xiao Hua told Ziyi his specific name. Ziyi's face showed a trace of understanding. "What? Fellow Taoist Ziyi, is there something wrong? Or, has fellow Taoist heard of this Xiao's name?" Xiao Hua asked somewhat strangely. Hee hee. No. Ziyi's face returned to normal. He said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Zhao's name is similar to the name of a close relative of mine. This is why I'm surprised." Then, Ziyi said with a smile, "Actually, a name is just a mark for others to call. Who cares if it's good or bad? In this world, there are more than millions of people with the same name. Just do whatever you want." Xiaohua stopped feeling strange and nodded. Fellow Taoist Ziye's words are indeed reasonable. Then, Xiaohua looked down at the street where there were already some cultivators flying quickly. He said with a smile, "This Xiao has let fellow Taoists Yi see a joke." This little one didn't expect to attract fellow Taoists' attention just by walking down there. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't know. When Ziyi heard this, the expression on his face became slightly exaggerated. He pointed with his finger and said, "Just now, this little one was tasting tea." Fellow Taoist Xiao came alone from the wind and snow and almost turned into a piece of snow. This little one was immediately startled. But which cultivator doesn't come and go? Are you afraid of getting dust on the ground or stepping on snow? Fellow Taoist Xiao, on the other hand, is just the opposite. You're like a naughty child playing around, wanting to leave a graceful impression on the snow. Fellow Taoist Xiao is such an elegant person. This is the first time this little one has seen someone like you. That's why I took the liberty to come downstairs and invite fellow Taoist upstairs for a chat. Haha, fellow Taoist Ziyi is wrong. Xiaohua shook his head and said, "This Xiao is just an ordinary person. When I saw the wind and snow, I was secretly delighted. That's why I came all the way here, wanting to see what kind of snow I could step on. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist would take me as an expert. I'm really ashamed." Whether it's ordinary or elegant, since I met fellow Taoist Xiao in the wind and snow, it's naturally fate. As Ziyi said this, he poured the spirit tea again. Xiaohua drank it again without any trace of politeness. Seeing Xiaohua drink it again, Ziyi was somewhat puzzled. He said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you must be thirsty from the first cup. Shouldn't you carefully taste the second cup?" "Hehe, this Xiao is still thirsty," Xiaohua said without hiding anything. Moreover, this Xiao actually doesn't know how to taste tea. If fellow Taoist Ziyi wants to experience it, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Sure enough, Ziyi was really somewhat disappointed. He asked again, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't you feel that the sweetness of this fragrant demon person is faint at first? This faint fragrance gradually gathers, and when it reaches a certain level, it suddenly erupts. If you drink it one mouthful at a time, the feeling will be even more obvious." -8. Chapter 2275. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua was happy in his heart. He immediately thought of Qiandiang. That guy was a hedonistic son of rich parents, so he was a bit particular about these things. If he was put together with this Ziyi, he would be able to chat with him at that time. Xiaohua was just a layman, so how could he have such thoughts? Xiaohua said very apologetically, "Let fellow Taoist Ziyi know that I don't like the mellow fragrance of spirit wine and prefer spirit tea. Actually, it's just a kind of preference, and it doesn't mean anything. There are many spirit teas in my Xiaoyu continent, and each kind of spirit tea has its own uniqueness. I also like all of them. Although fellow Taoists' fragrant spirit tea is different, and the spirit energy in the spirit tea is faint. It's not beneficial to cultivation, but the fragrance is unique. It's a kind of fragrance that almost penetrates the soul. I can't say anything else." However, Xiaohua clearly felt that it was a common language, but in Ziye's ears, his eyes lit up again. He gave a thumbs up and said, "The big voice is silent, the big elephant is formless. Fellow Taoist Xiao, your words are like pearls, I admire you." Damn it, why didn't I feel it before? Xiaohua rubbed his nose. If he wasn't a mere foundation establishment cultivator, he would really think that Ziye's flattery had ulterior motives. Moreover, when he thought about how he was unhappy in front of Cui Hongshan, this kind of aristocratic family disciple, and how he was praised so highly in front of Ziyi, this kind of extraordinary bearing, he felt a little proud. "Come, fellow Taoist Xiao, drink another cup." Ziyi raised the teapot again and said with a smile, however, "Fellow Taoist Xiao must taste this cup carefully. Don't." Xiaohua's eyes turned, and he blocked the teapot. "What?" Ziyi was slightly surprised. Xiaohua sighed and said, "2 cups is enough. It also gives me something to think about. If I drink more, I'm afraid I won't drink any other spirit tea in the future." "Haha, no matter." Ziyi laughed and turned to the brawny man and said, "Fu Lu, take some spirit tea and bring it to fellow Taoist Xiao. Yes, young master. The brawny man cupped his fists and turned to leave. Better not. Xiao Hua still shook his head. The spirit tea has to be finished in the end. Aye. So it's like this. Z slightly hesitated. Young master. The burly man reminded him in a low voice. This fragrant demon. It's fine. Z seemed to have made a decision. He clapped his hands, and without any magic power fluctuations, he took out a small pouch from his bosom and handed it to Xiao Hua. This is the fragrant demon's tea seed, as well as a jade slip for planting it. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please accept it. Oh, fellow Taoists, I really knows me well. Xiao Hua unceremoniously reached out his hand and took it, smiling as he said, from now on, this Xiao won't lack spirit tea. Young master. When the robust man called Fu Lu saw that Xiao Hua was so rude, he was slightly annoyed and reminded him. When Zi saw Xiao Hua rudely take away the bag, he didn't even say a word of thanks. At first, he was stunned, but then he was overjoyed. He turned to Fu Lu and said, You don't need to say anything. Fellow Taoist Xiao is so magnanimous. He's a rare cultivator, so he'll definitely be fine. Yes, Fu Lu was helpless. Looking at the bag that Xiao Hua had already taken away, he seemed to sigh and lowered his head in silence. Seeing the robust man so cautious, Xiao Hua felt uneasy in his heart again. He liked this extremely fragrant spirit tea, but it definitely wasn't to the extent that he liked it. It was purely a natural reaction of being petty. He wanted to take whatever he liked, especially spirit grasses and the like. At this moment, seeing the other party's reaction, he already knew that this spirit tea was definitely not a small matter, or there was something precious about it that he didn't know about. Xiao Hua hesitated, but he didn't put the bag into his space. Zi keenly sensed this and smiled. He waved his hand and said, This spirit tea is very precious. In the entire Dawn Rain continent, I'm afraid that only my family has it. Moreover, it's impossible to grow it in ordinary places. This is all recorded in the jade slip. Therefore, my servant is somewhat worried. However, since this Xiao Shang was able to meet fellow Taoist Xiao and even benefited greatly from it, this bit of spirit tea is nothing. Of course, if fellow Taoist Xiao has the heart, you can keep this thing to yourself. In the face of Zi Ye's magnanimity, Xiao Hua's heart suddenly lightened. He reached out his hand and said, It's a deal. Oh? Seeing Xiao Hua's outstretched hand, Zi hesitated again. Then, he reached out his hand and hit Xiao Hua's palm. He smiled and said, It's a deal. Ziya's hand was very cold, like ice. However, Xiao Hua didn't care. He scratched his head and thought for a moment, then asked, Fellow Taoist Zi, do you need any spirit grasses or medicinal pills? Perhaps this Xiao can be of help. No need, no need. Zi said with a smile. Needless to say, this Xiaoxing doesn't need any spirit grasses. Even if I did, I can't take them right now. Otherwise, wouldn't this Xiaosheng take the opportunity to blackmail you? How boring that would be. Hee. Xiao Hua smiled and put away the small bag. He then took out a messaging talisman and said, This is this Zhao's messaging talisman. If fellow Taoist Zi has time, you can contact this Xiao. However, Zi looked at Xiao Hua's messaging talisman and didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he asked, Fellow Taoist Xiao, are you saying goodbye? Xiao Hua touched his nose with his other hand and smiled bitterly. He didn't have time to drink tea with this young master of an aristocratic family here. Not to mention looking for the feeling of the hand of karma, even returning to the Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment to cultivate would be better than this. Seeing Xiao Hua's bitter smile, a trace of disappointment flashed through Zi Ye's eyes. However, he shook his head and said, Life is like a long river, turbulent without end. The number of people we meet every day is countless. To be able to meet fellow Taoist Xiao here today is fate. The waves of fate are splendid here. If we force ourselves to wait for tomorrow, it might not be the same as today. Fellow Taoist Xiao, if we are fated, we will definitely meet again in the future. Ha ha ha, exactly. When Xiao Hua heard Ziye's words that were similar to his own nonsense, he laughed loudly in his heart. He withdrew his hand and put away the messaging talisman. He stood up and said, then this Xiao will disturb you. This Xiao will take his leave. Fellow Taoist Xiao doesn't need to be so polite. May I know where fellow Taoist Xiao is going? Ziyi stood up and asked. I will go into the wind and snow and become a man of wind and snow again. I will patrol the sky without a trace. I will return in the snowy night. Xiaohua said loudly and walked away. Ziye's eyes showed reluctance when he heard this. It seemed that these words were very much in his favor. However, Fu Lu's eyes were full of sharp swords. He only treated Xiaohua as a swindler who would leave after swindling the spirit tea. The moment Xiaohua stepped out of the grassland, Zi suddenly said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, I want to go to the EG of the Sky Patrol City later. Do you have time? EG? When Xiaohua heard this, he hesitated slightly. He was interested in the EG plan, but he was afraid that it would be inappropriate to bring someone with him. However, Xiaohua immediately thought of Ziye's magnanimity. He turned his head and said with a smile, Since fellow Taoist Ziyi has a request, how can I not comply? Okay. A smile appeared on Ziye's face. He instructed Fu Lu, You pack up and wait for me in front of the EG. Young master. Fu Lu naturally didn't feel at ease letting Ziyi go alone. It doesn't matter. Fellow Taoist Xiao is here. Ziyi waved his hand and said impatiently. Unfortunately, Fu Lu was worried about Xiaohua. He hurriedly stepped forward and was about to speak again. Bring him along. Xiaohua said with a smile in a while. When fellow Taoist Ziyi bids too much, there will be someone to help carry things. Hee, that's good. Ziyi was stunned. He immediately understood what Xiaohua said, and a smile appeared on his face. After leaving the tea house, endless snowflakes greeted them. Xiaohua said with a smile, Do we still have to walk in the snow? Of course. Ziyi clapped his hands and said, I was just about to experience fellow Taoist's state of mind just now. Sigh, what a spoiled child of an aristocratic family. Xiaohua secretly shook his head. Then, he thought of Cui Hongshan. Unfortunately, Cui Biao doesn't have Ziye's bearing. He only has a silly air. Just as Xiaohua was secretly comparing them, Ziyi raised his head and looked left and right. Then, he clapped his hands together and gradually formed a rhythm. Then, along with this rhythm, an extremely sad and heroic song came out of Ziye's mouth. The cold wind rustles, the flying snow drifts, the long road is long, I walk in song. Looking back at the stars, the past is like smoke and clouds. I still remember the time when we parted, leaving only love in the snow. Good boy. Xiaohua's blood spurted as he listened. It was as if he saw Ziyi parting with a beautiful woman in the snow, alone in the snow region. No wonder this guy felt so much when he saw I walk in the snow alone. It turns out that he is also a sad person. However, he must be of noble birth. Why would he be sad? Sigh, that might not be the case. Everyone has their own troubles. Everyone has their own worries. Unconsciously, Xiaohua also thought of Fairy Hongxia, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, and Xue Xue, who had yet to come out of seclusion. Unconsciously, Xiaohua also clapped his hands and said, What a good song! Let I join you in a song, walking in the snow. Immediately, Xiaohua also began to clap his hands. The rhythm was similar to Ziye's. Love in the snow, love in the snow. Dreams in the snow have yet to wake. Infatuation in exchange for a lifetime of tears. Walking in the snow, walking in the snow. I walk alone in the snow. No matter how many heroic feelings I have, I still can't dream of you. Only by walking with you can I pursue my dreams. Good, good, good. When Ziyi heard this, he was overjoyed. His face flushed red, and he reached out to grab Xiaohua's clapping hands. He said loudly, What a good song! What a good song! What a good song! Only by walking with you can I pursue my dreams. Boom! Xiaohua's mind heated up. Dreams! Dreams! Chasing dreams. He seemed to have thought of something. You really made me sigh with emotion. Ziyi still didn't notice Xiaohua's abnormality and said to himself, I came across these lyrics by chance, but I didn't think of a suitable next verse. Not only did fellow Taoist Xiao think of the next verse, he even matched the wonderful song, Love in the Snow and Walking in the Snow. This trip to Sky Patrol City is indeed. Fellow Taoist Xiao, fellow Taoist Xiao. Oh, it's nothing. When Xiaohua heard Ziye's call, he woke up from his confusion. He didn't remember anything. You're crazy. At this time, several early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators flew past them. Seeing the two people singing like this, they unconsciously threw down these two words and flew far away. -8. Chapter 2276. Haha, I'm sick. Z looked up to the sky and laughed. Only Taoist Xiao and I are sick. Haha, that's right, that's right. Xiao Hua held Ziye's cold hand and walked forward quickly on the snow. Behind them, Fu Lu had a worried look on his face as he quickly followed. Is this E.G.? Xiao Hua was very curious when he saw the huge archway overflowing with people more than 100 feet in front of him. This lively scene was completely different from the deserted streets they walked through earlier. Needless to say, this must be E.G. Ziyi sneered. The world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. Even in the Sword Dao War, those who pursue profit are still the same. Sweat. Xiao Hua secretly wiped his sweat. Am I not that kind of person who pursues profit? E.G. was naturally different from the streets. There was a huge restriction on it. Not only was it bright, but even the snow was blocked outside the restriction. After paying a considerable amount of spirit stones, Xiao Hua and Ziyi entered E.G. Inside E.G., one's divine sense was restricted. One could not go too far. Xiao Hua looked as far as he could and felt that E.G. was probably a few li big. The crisscrossing paths formed a grid of the same size. Some of the grids were empty, while some of the grids had cultivators sitting inside. In front of them were all kinds of spiritual herbs, medicinal pills and other items, waiting for others to inquire about them. What are you looking for, Taoist Ziyi? Xiao Hua glanced and smiled. Ziyi shook his head. There's nothing important. I'm just walking around and looking around. Good. This Xiao also has the same idea. Xiao Hua nodded and casually pointed. Let's go this way. I'll listen to Taoist Zhao's instructions. Ziyi returned to his humble and polite appearance. However, Xiao Hua was not the Xiao Hua in Jinghua City now. How could he take a fancy to ordinary things? However, Xiao Hua looked at them with great interest. He looked at one grid after another. Occasionally, he would stop and transmit a few words to the owner of the grid. However, what made Ziyi feel strange was that after walking for nearly the time it took to eat a meal, the two of them hadn't walked far, and Xiao Hua hadn't exchanged anything. Midnight couldn't help but feel impatient. Oh, fellow Taoist Sai, do you want to go somewhere else to take a look? Xiao Hua sensed something and turned around to ask. That's not it. Ziyi was very frank. I feel that since there's nothing I need, I can leave. It won't be too late to ask for more when I find what I want. Fellow Taoist Zhao's actions are very puzzling to me. Haha, fellow Taoist Sai, I'm just a layman. I'd like to see if there's anything I can take advantage of here. Xiao Hua chuckled and said, especially things that others think are useless. This Xiao is able to get them at an extremely cheap price. I am very happy in my heart. I don't understand. If it was something useful, it should be given a corresponding amount of spirit stones. Useless things don't need spirit stones. Then wouldn't you lose the joy of coming here? Of course, Xiao Hua also didn't understand Ziye's thoughts. How about this? Ziyi looked ahead and said, after 4 hours, there will be a bidding on the central bidding platform in front. I'll wait for fellow Taoist Xiao at the southwest corner. All right. Xiao Hua also smiled and nodded in agreement, but he still lowered his head and looked around. Young master. This guy is obviously a low-level Foundation establishment cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. Looking at his greedy look, he's not an elegant person at all. Why did you personally come downstairs, personally serve tea, and even befriend him like this? After walking far away, Fu Lu whispered. Sigh, Fu Lu, how would you understand? Not to mention that Xiao Hua is a Foundation establishment cultivator, even if he's an itinerant cultivator, even if he's a layman. If he has the spirit of walking in the snow and the sadness of love in the snow, then he's my soulmate. Soulmate, do you understand? Ziye's mouth revealed a trace of strangeness. I didn't expect to meet a soulmate in this Sky Patrol city. If it weren't for this Xiao Hua, I really only know the meaning of a soulmate, but not the taste of one. But, young master, he's just... Fu Lu still wanted to say. However, Z waved his hand and stopped him, saying coldly, although I don't know much about Xiaohua, I feel that in this Xiaoyu continent, I'm afraid that he's the only one who can be my soulmate. It's enough for me to have this soulmate in this life. You just need to know about this matter. If it's leaked out, be careful of your lives. Ziya's calmness and decisiveness. Where was the pedantic image of Xiaohua? Yes, I don't dare. Fu Lu's face changed slightly as he bowed and said, let's go and see what's so good about this Sky Patrol City ZG. As Z said, the image of Xiaohua arguing with the stall owner but not buying appeared in his mind, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously revealed a trace of a smile. Xiaohua didn't feel that he was Ziya's soulmate. He just felt that Ziya was very frank. He was originally a rogue cultivator, so it was normal for him to be stingy. Oh, why are there small white bones in this grid? Xiaohua's gaze turned, and he was a little surprised. He took a few steps forward and said with a smile, fellow Taoist, I don't understand. Oh, so it's a fellow Taoist from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Please speak. The owner of the grid replied with a smile on his face. These white bones, what's the use? Does anyone want them? Xiaohua pointed with his finger. The cultivator suddenly understood and looked up and down at Xiaohua. The Imperial Thunder Sect has just arrived in Sky Patrol City. I'm afraid that fellow Taoist hasn't left the city to fight, right? Yes, that's right. So what? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. Let me tell you, fellow Taoist, these white bones should be something from Million Ming Mountain. When we Tao sect disciples attack sword cultivators, other than their medicinal pills and spirit stones, there would naturally be something from Million Ming Mountain in their storage bags. Haha, indeed. I really didn't expect that. Xiaohua suddenly realized, and then he thought of the many storage bags he had captured. Along the way, time was tight, and Dui Ling and the others were also by his side, so he really didn't have time to organize those storage bags. Moreover, the owners of these storage bags were only Liang Jian's cultivation base, which was far inferior to Li Xiaobai, so Xiaohua was less eager to plunder. Now that he heard this, he knew that there might be some good things in the storage bags of sword cultivators. Fellow Taoist, how much are these white bones? Xiaohua asked directly without any politeness. Since you're a fellow Taoist from the Imperial Thunder Sect, we can be considered to have fought side by side. This white bone can be considered as a chief cattail pill. The early stage foundation establishment cultivator said very generously. Hearing this, Xiaohua didn't say anything and turned around to leave. Oh, fellow Taoist, what's wrong? You're leaving just like that? If you think it's too expensive, then 2 white bones and 1 chief cattail pill. Seeing that someone suddenly asked about the white bones that no one had ever asked about, how could that cultivator let Xiaohua go? Xiaohua turned around and grinned, revealing his white teeth, and said, fellow Taoist really knows how to deceive me. Since sword cultivators can't use this thing, my Tao sect's cultivators can't use it even more. It's not even worth half a spirit stone, yet you actually asked for such an exorbitant price. How do you want me to open my mouth? Hee, that cultivator saw Xiaohua turn around. Knowing that there was still hope, he smiled apologetically and said, no matter what, this thing is still my spoils of war from killing sword cultivators. I can't give it away for free. All right. When Xiaohua heard the words for free, he naturally stopped and walked back, saying, I'll give you 2 spirit stones for these white bones. Only 2 spirit stones. Hearing this, the cultivator shook his head with all his might. Fellow Taoist, you should continue on. I'll keep this thing for myself as a souvenir. Xiaohua smacked his lips and said with a smile, what's the point of you keeping it for yourself? Why don't you let me take a look? How about this? 1 chief cattail pill. This is my bottom line. If you don't agree, I'm really going to leave. Chief cattail pills were obviously more useful than spirit stones. Although that cultivator was somewhat unwilling, seeing that Xiaohua really didn't have any intention of hesitating, he could only nod and wave his hand, saying, fine, I'll do as fellow Taoist says, and don't be so unwilling. Xiaohua threw out a chief cattail pill and said, If it wasn't for the fact that I haven't fought sword cultivators and haven't seen these white bones, I wouldn't give you this chief cattail pill." As he said this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and put all the white bones into his storage pouch. Then, he turned around and left. "This idiot." The cultivator secretly laughed and happily put the chief cattail pill into his storage pouch. "This idiot." Xiao Hua turned around and also secretly laughed. "You guys don't understand this thing, but this young master does. Maybe there's a soul cultivation technique inside. Sigh, they're all idiots. Who's the idiot?" After walking for a while, Xiao Hua saw a few more white bones in one of the boxes and even a shabby palm-sized flag. White skeletons were engraved on the flag. Needless to say, this was another item from millions of Ming mountains. Damn it, could it be that there's a lot of this junk in EG? Xiao Hua thought as he walked up and continued his idiot conversation with that idiot. Sure enough, Xiao Hua's guess was correct. There were really a lot of bones in Ming mountains, and they were all seized by cultivators from the hands of swordsmen. Cultivators didn't understand this, and the spoils of war for almost a year were all placed here. No one would use medicinal pills or spirit stones to exchange for it. Only Xiao Hua was interested in checking it out. But Xiao Hua, in addition to medicinal pills, also had a lot of spirit herbs and spirit stones. It was as easy as flipping his hand to exchange for them, and the price gradually became lower. Just as he handed over the spirit stones to the cultivator in the first grid, the next grid had white bones or cultivators from Ming mountains, and the price they gave was naturally low. Damn it, this won't do. Seeing that the cultivators along the way were looking at him, Xiao Hua scratched his head. Collecting things from Ming mountains like this will definitely attract the attention of others. It's better to use bewilderment. -8. Chapter 2277. Immediately after, Xiao Hua pretended to shake his head, ignoring them as he hurriedly walked away. After passing a dozen or so grids and finding a secluded place, he put on the camouflage robe and continued to collect white bones. Another 2 hours passed. Xiao Hua gradually went deeper into EG. The millions of items in Ming Mountain gradually decreased, but the number of demonic artifacts increased again. Seeing the demonic artifacts, Xiao Hua was even more delighted. Compared to white bones, he needed these demonic artifacts even more now, especially hammers, spears, and other extremely heavy demonic artifacts. These were the materials he fused into the Great Wisdom Sword. Currently, he didn't know the forging method of the 5 elements Wishful Heaven Staff. He only wanted to refine this Great Wisdom Sword as heavy as possible. However, the price of this demonic artifact was different from white bones. Could it be that it required spirit herbs and spirit stones? Sometimes, it even required a lot of spirit stones, and the age of the spirit herbs was also very old. But what did Xiao Hua have? Naturally, it was spirit herbs. Wherever spirit herbs were, the demonic artifacts would automatically fly up and enter his space. Haha, Xiao Hua was very happy. Damn it, I never thought that spending large amounts of spirit stones would also be so refreshing. In the future, if anyone says I'm stingy, I'll definitely be angry with them. Oh, this is a demonic slip? Xiao Hua was feeling proud when his eyes lit up. It was a pitch-black demonic slip with a missing corner in the grids in front of him. Fellow Taoist, Xiao Hua quickly walked over and cupped his hands. Just as he was about to ask, another slightly hoarse voice sounded at the same time. What is this pitch-black thing? How many spirit stones? Xiao Hua stared blankly and turned to look. A cultivator similarly wearing a camouflage robe was pointing at the demonic slip. Without waiting for the owner of the demonic slip to speak, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, Fellow Taoist, I saw this thing first. After I ask, it won't be too late for you to ask. Haha, that cultivator let out an unpleasant laughter from the camouflage robe. You didn't seem to have said it. Yes, I didn't say it, but I was about to say it. Xiao Hua glanced at the owner of the demonic slip. It was a gray-haired late-stage Foundation establishment female cultivator. He smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, don't you think so? The female cultivator didn't have any special expression on her face. She just raised her head and indifferently said to Xiao Hua, You spoke, but you didn't say what you wanted to ask. Which fellow Taoist, although you were late, you directly pointed at this thing. She then said to another cultivator, when I obtained this item, it was together with a demonic tool. That demonic tool has already been traded away, leaving only this item. This item is similar to my Tao Sect's jade slip. I can't see through it with my spiritual sense, so I guess it's a demonic cultivator's jade slip. Then he looked back and forth between Xiaohua and the cultivator and said, You guys wait for the bidding. If it's enough, I'll let you guys have it. Looking at the female cultivator's indifferent appearance, Xiaohua felt extremely regretful. If he had been here a moment longer, he feared he would have been able to obtain this devil slip with just a few spirit stones. This was a great bargain. Xiaohua didn't know what was inside the MO slip, but what he lamented was the passing of a cheap price. All right. The cultivator pondered for a moment and said, For the sake of silence, I want to set up a silence restriction. What do you two fellow Taoists think? Up to you. The female cultivator was slightly stunned and casually waved her hand. That's exactly what I want. Xiaohua's heart thumped. He knew he had met someone who knew what was good for him. Sure enough, after the cultivator set up the silence restriction, he asked the female cultivator, Fellow Taoist, how much are you bidding? I already said. Up to you. The female cultivator seemed to have seen something fishy. She didn't say anything and only pushed the matter to Xiaohua and the cultivator. Fellow Taoist, how many spirit stones do you think this item is worth? The cultivator looked at Xiaohua again. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the cultivator's confusion restriction. He couldn't see through the cultivator's cultivation. He understood in his heart that this cultivator's confusion restriction was either a high-level cultivator or his cultivation wasn't inferior to a golden core cultivator. Seeing the cultivator ask him, he smiled and said, This is also what I wanted to ask fellow Taoist. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't seem to have any flaws, the cultivator slightly muttered, I bid 10 spirit stones. I bid 11. Xiaohua followed without hesitation. Fellow Taoist, listen carefully. It's not 10 high-grade spirit stones, it's 10 top-grade spirit stones. The cultivator said neither hurriedly nor slowly. I also said 11 top-grade spirit stones. Xiaohua also said neither hurriedly nor slowly. The two bid neither hurriedly nor slowly, but the owner of the magic slip couldn't help but cry out in surprise. This junk that had been thrown in the grid for several days actually rose to the price of 11 top-grade spirit stones all of a sudden. She really couldn't imagine it. 20, 21, 200, 201, 20,000, 20,001. Fellow Taoist, you aren't joking with I, right? The cultivator was a little angry. Xiaohua only added 1 spirit stone each time. Wasn't this teasing him? Fellow Taoist, that's a piece of top-grade spirit stone. Xiaohua was extremely distressed. He did have a lot of spirit stones in his space, but to take out tens of thousands of spirit stones all of a sudden, he was still reluctant. However, he heard him say, If you add less, I can also throw 1 less spirit stone. Unfortunately, the magic slip had already changed his voice. Others couldn't hear it. Forget it. The cultivator said to the female cultivator, I also won't add more spirit stones. As long as this fellow Taoist offers more spirit stones, I will pay 10 more spirit stones than him. Yes, I also won't add more. No matter how much this fellow Taoist offers, I will pay 1 more spirit stone than him. Xiaohua basically said word for word, Fellow Taoist? Fellow Taoist? The magic slip saw that the female cultivator didn't speak and reminded her. The female cultivator didn't want to speak. It wasn't that she hadn't seen top-grade spirit stones before, but she had never seen this item bid 20,000 top-grade spirit stones at once. She was really stunned. She didn't know what to say. 3? No, 40,000 spirit stones. After a moment, the female cultivator finally came back to her senses and shouted with a stutter. She finally understood why the magic slip laid down the magic slip. However, after the female cultivator finished speaking, she didn't see Xiaohua and the magic slip competing. She was quite confused. Looking at the two of them, her tone flickered as she probed. Is this old woman asking for too much? If If it's not possible, then 30,000 spirit stones is also fine. Xiaohua's heart was bleeding. This was 30,000 spirit stones. He didn't know how long it took him to save up. However, he still forced himself to be calm and said with a smile, "This fellow Taoist spoke first. I will wait for him to bid first. No matter what, I will pay 10 more spirit stones than him. Then what else can I say?" The cultivator said slowly. "Good, good." Xiaohua clapped his hands. "I will also do the same. No matter what, I will pay 1 more spirit stone than him. Then what else can I say?" This. Although the female cultivator was a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, she could be considered experienced and knowledgeable, but she couldn't help but worry. Looking at Xiaohua and the magic slip cultivator, she also understood in her heart that someone who could take out tens of thousands of top-grade spirit stones was not a simple person. She didn't know that after foundation establishment was golden core, and she didn't have any magic slip cultivators. If she wasn't careful, she would offend the two of them. The consequences were a bit serious. Thinking of this, the previous ecstasy turned into bitterness. The female cultivator smiled apologetically and said, "Don't let me make the decision. Can you two fellow Taoists discuss a solution? You are the owner of this thing. What do you want us to discuss?" The cultivator was slightly angry. The female cultivator still smiled apologetically. "Isn't there nothing I can do? Although I want the spirit stones, I can't offend you two fellow Taoists." Seeing the female cultivator speak the truth, the magic slip cultivator didn't ask anymore. He thought for a moment and said, "How about this? Since this thing can't be valued with spirit stones, then let's use something. What does fellow Taoist need? You can say it, any magic tool, medicinal pill, or cultivation method. As long as I have it, I can't exchange it." Oh? The magic slip cultivator didn't mention spiritual herbs. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he said with a smile, "That's right. If fellow Taoist needs any cultivation method, spiritual herb, or magic tool, you can say it. Even if it's a cultivation method, I have it here." "Really anything?" The female cultivator probed. "How about a magic tool?" "Fellow Taoist, you are a bit greedy." The magic slip cultivator sneered. "However, if it's a low-grade magic tool, I can consider it." "It doesn't matter. Magic tools are fine too." Xiaohua waved his hand generously. Naturally, he didn't have any magic tools, but he couldn't lose to the magic slip cultivator in terms of momentum. However, he still hoped that the female cultivator would ask for some 10,000-year-old spiritual herb. Of course, he still had some face-retaining pills in his space. He wanted to mention it at this time, but when he saw the female cultivator's wrinkled skin and white hair, he held back. If he showed off for no reason, he might anger her, and it would be difficult to get the magic bamboo slip. "I don't want any magic tools, cultivation methods, or spiritual herbs." The female cultivator thought for a moment, gritted her teeth, and said, "I came to Sky Patrol City because I want the spring rejuvenation pill that has just been auctioned. Fellow Taoists, who can take out the spring rejuvenation pill, I will immediately give it to you." "Ah, you want the spring rejuvenation pill?" The magic slip cultivator was stunned, but when he saw the female cultivator's expression, he nodded and said, "I understand what you mean. However, the spring rejuvenation pill is only auctioned once a month in Sky Patrol City. I'm afraid that the second pill will be auctioned today. How can I take it out? Moreover, the price of the spring rejuvenation pill is not something that you can compare with. You'd better change it." Xiaohua hesitated. He didn't want to ask, but he couldn't help but ask curiously, "What kind of pill is the spring rejuvenation pill?" How come I've never heard of it?" "You've never heard of it?" The magic slip cultivator sneered and said to the female cultivator, "Look, this fellow Taoist doesn't know about the spring rejuvenation pill, so naturally, he doesn't have it. Fellow Taoist, why don't you see what else you want?" "Sigh, I said I wanted the spring rejuvenation pill. Other things are not interesting to me." The female cultivator said sadly, "I'll accept this item. The auction will begin in a while. If the two fellow Taoists can take out the spring rejuvenation pill, I'll immediately exchange it with this item." -8. Chapter 2278. Damn it. This guy actually raised the price. Although Xiaohua didn't know what the rejuvenation elixir was, he knew it was not a trivial thing when he saw the surprise of the Miji practitioner. Seeing the female practitioner's behavior, he knew that she had grasped the mentality of the two people and wanted to use this thing to threaten them to help her bid for the rejuvenation elixir. Seeing that the female practitioner took the magic slip, the Miji practitioner was still unwilling and asked, "You really don't want other things? For example, the cure elixir? The Lingli elixir?" This moved the female cultivator, but she hesitated for a moment before saying, "Fellow Taoist, I also want it. But even if I have reached the Jindan realm, I still can't restore my appearance unless I am pregnant. But the road from the Jindan realm to the nascent realm is long. How can it compare with the rejuvenation elixir? You are not a female practitioner, so you don't understand the importance of the rejuvenation elixir to me. Fellow Taoist, you must know," the Miho cultivator said coldly. "It seems that only the two of us are bidding for this item. If you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one. In the future, if someone else comes, this item won't even be worth a few spirit stones." The female practitioner hesitated again. The Miji practitioner was right. At this time, the magic slip was very hot, but if there were no Xiaohua and the Miji practitioner, who would want the magic slip? A few spiritual stones were not worth it, let alone tens of thousands of top-grade spiritual stones. However, she also understood that she couldn't bid for the rejuvenation elixir with only tens of thousands of top-grade spiritual stones, and she might offend either of Xiaohua and the Miji practitioner. Forget it. The female practitioner smiled apologetically. The auction will be held in a while. If you two can't bid for the rejuvenation elixir, you can bid for the Lingli elixir. If you can offer the Lingli elixir, I will give it to you. You really have a big appetite. The Miji practitioner sneered and glanced at Xiaohua. He was about to remove the mute inhibition, but Xiaohua stood there thoughtfully. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't leave, the practitioner stopped again. He wanted to see what Xiaohua would do. "May I ask, what does the rejuvenation pill look like? What are its effects?" Xiaohua was puzzled. He could be considered a cultivator who could refine pills and had seen countless spiritual grasses. However, he had never heard of a rejuvenation pill. Moreover, from the female cultivator's words, this rejuvenation pill could actually restore one's youth. This made him even more curious. The female cultivator hesitated for a moment, and a trace of admiration appeared on her face. She explained, "I only know the name of the rejuvenation pill. I've never seen it before." Oh, Xiaohua was helpless. He knew that he might really have to go to the auction to see what the rejuvenation pill was. Moreover, there was only one in the entire Sky Patrol city. It was unlikely that he would be able to bid for it. However, according to the fellow cultivator, the rejuvenation pill is different from ordinary pills. It doesn't have any medicinal fragrance and looks a little ugly. There are slight bumps on it, which seem to be some talismans. The female cultivator's next words made Xiaohua quiver. His grandmother. Wasn't this the pill that this young master refined? Then, what is the effect of this rejuvenation pill? Xiaohua anxiously asked. The rejuvenation pill, as the name implies, is naturally a pill that restores one's youth. The female cultivator's eyes lit up. I really don't know which alchemy master is able to refine such a magical pill. It can actually restore the female cultivator's appearance from 10 years ago. Even the blemishes on her face have disappeared. Oh my, it seems to be the face-retaining pill. The more Xiaohua listened, the more familiar it sounded. He couldn't help but be surprised. Since he only saw the face-retaining pill, Xiaohua really had it in his space. However, he never thought that the face-retaining pill could actually restore youth. It could restore a female cultivator's youth. Therefore, Xiaohua had to ask again, how old is the female cultivator who bid for the rejuvenation pill? What's her cultivation? Fellow cultivator, why are you asking so many questions? Could it be that you have the rejuvenation pill? The Mi Lu cultivator said coldly, Do I have any relationship with you? Xiaohua retorted and said, I still have such a pill in my storage bag. However, I don't know the name. You really have it? The female cultivator was wild with joy. Her eyes fervently looked at Xiaohua. And Xiao Hua flipped his hand and took out a face-retaining pill. He said with a smile, I occasionally got a pill in the market. I heard from that destitute cultivator that it was some face-retaining pill. I didn't care. After all, although that guy is indeed young, his cultivation is ordinary. This kind of thing can't be taken seriously. Can I take a look? The female cultivator asked cautiously. Of course. Xiao Hua didn't care at all. He stretched out his hand in front of the female cultivator. He didn't take this female cultivator seriously at all. Sure enough, the female cultivator's hand was trembling. She said, This is very similar to the legend. Can I try it? Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and said, How can there be such a cheap thing? If this pill isn't the rejuvenation pill, wouldn't you have eaten it for nothing? Fellow Taoist. It was the female cultivator's turn to plead. The temptation of regaining her youth was really irresistible for an old woman like her. That's right. If fellow Taoist takes it, and there is no effect, it doesn't match what we said before. The Miho cultivator said coldly. I didn't make any hard oath. The female cultivator said without hesitation, This thing is mine. I can give it to whoever I want. For the sake of her youth, the female cultivator wasn't even afraid of offending the Miho cultivator. Fellow Taoist wants to exchange with I? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Yes. The female cultivator realized her impulsiveness and hesitated for a moment before answering. Yes. The Miho cultivator naturally saw it. He sneered and pointed with his finger. In the market of Sky Patrol City, this old man followed the rules of Shueyu Taoist. You also have an agreement with this old man. Although we didn't make any hard oath, this old man knows you. If you insist on going your own way and forget about the agreement just now, not only will this bullshit pill not be a rejuvenation pill, but your youth will also be gone. I'm afraid you won't even be able to keep your life. Then he glanced at Xiao Hua and said, This fellow Taoist took out an unknown pill and cheated you of your things. He patted his butt and left, but he left you behind. You think about it carefully. The Miho cultivator's words hit the female cultivator's heart. If Xiao Hua's pill wasn't the rejuvenation pill, she would lose both her life and her. Only Xiao Hua would benefit from it. However, Xiao Hua wasn't sure if this pill was the rejuvenation pill. People were like this. If Xiao Hua didn't benefit from it, the female cultivator might take the risk. However, after thinking about it carefully, Xiao Hua might benefit from it, and she wouldn't gain anything. She immediately hesitated. Does fellow Taoist have anything else? Xiao Hua glanced at the things in the grid and asked with a smile, If I think it's suitable, fellow Taoist can take it on the spot. If it's not the rejuvenation pill, then exchange it for this pill. Actually, fellow Taoist hasn't seen the rejuvenation pill, but could it be that you haven't seen the ageless pill? Alas, I'll let fellow Taoist know. I naturally know about the ageless pill, and I also specially went to Twilight Tong City. However, the ageless pill's medicinal fragrance is overflowing. How can this pill's essence be compared to it? This pill's appearance is so strange. I can't be sure. The female cultivator smiled bitterly. She thought for a moment and patted her storage pouch. I obtained an incomplete jade slip here. It's a cultivation method for alchemy. There are many pill recipes for qi condensation cultivators inside. However, these pill recipes don't have a specific refining method. What's the use of that? Xiao Hua shook his head with all his strength. The female cultivator smiled bitterly. I can only exchange this now. Moreover, with the pill recipe, I can at least know what kind of spiritual grass is used to refine the pill, right? Ouch! Xiao Hua's eyes brightened. These words were like lightning flashing through his mind. It seemed to make him think of something. Xiao Hua didn't have time to think too much. He extended his hand, took the jade slip, and said with a smile, Since fellow Taoist loves beauty so much, how can I not fulfill your wish? If this item isn't the rejuvenation pill, then I'll exchange this jade slip with fellow Taoist. Of course, if the medicinal pill is the rejuvenation pill, I won't return this jade slip to you. Okay. The female cultivator was overjoyed. She simply didn't think of bargaining. Well, the greedy Xiao Hua got another jade slip. He was sure to make a profit and not lose. Taking a deep breath, The female cultivator glanced at the ageless pill again. She opened her mouth and swallowed it. As the medicinal pill entered her mouth, it immediately turned into a strong fragrance. It was the fragrance of the ageless grass. The female cultivator's heart immediately settled down. She knew Xiaohua hadn't deceived her. This medicinal pill was at least the ageless grass. The jade slip exchange wasn't unjust. Immediately, the medicinal liquid of the ageless pill entered her body. A trace of numbness, like a tiny electric light, came from the medicinal liquid and flowed through her meridians, along with the spiritual energy formed by the medicinal liquid. The female cultivator didn't dare to be negligent. However, she also didn't dare to completely refine the spiritual energy. She only controlled her true essence to refine a part of the spiritual energy. Sure enough, a miracle appeared. In just half a meal's time, the female cultivator's snow-white hair gradually began to turn black. The wrinkles on her face were also somewhat flat. Humph! The bewildered cultivator kept staring at the female cultivator. The changes of the female cultivator were naturally seen by his eyes. His eyes flashed with a strange color. How could he not know that this ageless pill was the rejuvenation pill? He coldly snorted, raised his hand to remove the mute restriction, turned around, and walked away. It really is the rejuvenation pill. Xiaohua was both surprised and seemed to have expected it. He didn't refine many medicinal pills, and the ageless pill definitely accounted for the largest proportion. Moreover, he only gave the ageless pill to Qin Diheng to exchange for spirit stones. However, what made Xiaohua puzzled was, how could the ageless pill he refined have the miraculous effect of restoring youth? Ha ha ha, I'm rich. Xiaohua didn't have time to think about the reason for this matter. His mind was immediately filled with pleasant surprise. The spirit stones in his mind were piled up like a mountain. -8. Chapter 2279. Wasn't it obvious? The face-retaining pill could be exchanged for the enthusiasm of young female cultivators. Wouldn't this rejuvenation pill capture the enthusiasm of all female cultivators below the nascent soul realm? For example, this female cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment and those female cultivators in the gold core realm had this opportunity. Who wouldn't bid for this rejuvenation pill and bring back their long-lost looks? Tao, fellow Taoist. The female cultivator's heart was obviously overflowing with joy. She waved her hand and displayed the mirror technique. Looking at the face and black and white hair reflected in the mirror, she stuttered and extended her hand to give the magic slip to Xiaohua. Her hand was trembling. This is really the rejuvenation pill. I am really grateful to fellow Taoist. This item belongs to fellow Taoist. Xiaohua took the magic slip and put it into his space with a flip of his hand. He smiled and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist is really lucky. To tell you the truth, I am also a little regretful at this time. I didn't expect this lousy medicinal pill to really be the rejuvenation pill. Fellow Taoist, this medicinal pill looks very unremarkable, but spiritual pills don't show off. How can ordinary medicinal pills compare to it? The female cultivator laughed even more and retorted, I don't know which alchemy master made this medicinal pill. Although it's only famous in Century City now, sooner or later, it will be famous in the entire Dawn Rain continent. Hee, it's just so. Seeing the female cultivator praising him in front of his face, Xiaohua's first reaction was to be modest. As soon as he said this, Xiaohua felt that it was inappropriate. Sure enough, the female cultivator asked, could it be that fellow Taoist has seen a medicinal pill more magical than this rejuvenation pill? No. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't say anything more to her. He quickly waved his hand and then said with a smile, since this inexplicable medicinal pill is really the rejuvenation pill, our deal is completed. I'll take my leave. Fellow Taoist, wait a moment. The female cultivator quickly stopped Xiaohua and said with a smile, I've really taken advantage of you by exchanging these 2 jade slips for the rejuvenation pill. If the value is not much different, I'll be at ease. However, this rejuvenation pill is too rare. If I don't compensate fellow Taoist, I'll feel sorry. Oh, fellow Taoist still has this kind of jade slip? Xiao Hua was overjoyed. The female cultivator shook her head and said, I don't have any more jade slips, but I still have a few bulky demonic tools. Those things are too heavy, so I don't feel like carrying them with me. If fellow Taoist needs them, you can come to my sect. You only need to pay the right amount of spirit stones to exchange with fellow Taoist. Great. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, if it's convenient for fellow Taoist, you can leave behind a messaging talisman. That's exactly what I was thinking. The female cultivator flipped her hand and handed a sound-transmitting talisman and a jade slip to Xiao Hua. She smiled and said, fellow Taoist seems to be a secluded cultivator. I'm afraid you don't know much about my sect. Take this jade slip and sound-transmitting talisman. If you come to find me, I'll prepare a devil artifact for you. Okay. Xiao Hua received the jade slip and sound-transmitting talisman, then cupped his hands and said, I'll take my leave now. We'll meet again someday. As Xiao Hua continued to move forward, the number of cultivators gradually decreased, and the number of empty grids also increased. Xiao Hua took a careful look and understood. He saw that there were some cultivators sitting cross-legged in the grids in this area. Most of these cultivators were dressed in camouflage robes, and there were some things placed in front of them. Some of these things were flying swords, some were magic tools, and even some were damaged magic weapons. Looking at the front of these things, there was a bright jade tablet with flickering words written on it. Some were rare refining materials, some were rare medicinal pills, some were magic weapons with certain effects written on them, and there were even some damaged flying swords and so on. The things that are being traded here are things that the owner of the grid especially needs. The other things are not being traded at all. Xiao Hua looked at the few cultivators that were silently walking through the crisscrossing grid and thought to himself. He immediately turned around. There were some grids that required 10,000-year-old spirit herbs. He did have them, but unfortunately, he couldn't use the things in the grids, so much so that he didn't even take a fancy to them. He didn't take out the spirit herbs. When he turned around and wanted to leave, he hesitated for a moment and turned around to look. He also found a grid and sat down. He stretched out his hand and patted it. The flying swords he obtained at Chicken Crow Mountain, except for 2 identical azure swords, all flew out and landed on the empty space in front of him. He then stretched out his hand and wrote 2 large words on the jade tablet in front of him. Then, he took out the pill recipe he just exchanged, closed his eyes, and immersed his divine sense in to carefully examine it. The 2 large words Xiao Hua wrote on the jade tablet were also pill recipe. The jade slip that the female cultivator gave him was just as the female cultivator said. It was abnormally damaged. Although there were many pill recipes inside, such as the Peiyuan pill, marrow cleansing pill, Gu pill, Emogia pill, smoke feather pill, clear fragrance pill, Giji pill, yellow sway pill, and even the foundation building pill, these pill recipes only listed in detail the types and quantities of spirit herbs or spirit fruits needed to make these pills. There were no specific refining methods. To an ordinary alchemist, these were absolutely chicken ribs among chicken ribs. However, the more Xiao Hua looked, the more delighted he became. A bold idea was born in his mind. Although this Xiao doesn't know the refining methods of these pills, this Xiao has a refining method of my own. As long as I know the quantity and quantity of spirit herbs in the pills, I can refine them. That high thunder pill, ageless pill, and so on are all like this. Moreover, this Xiao also knows the Qi Huang technique, the Tao of monarch and minister, and the mutual promotion and suppression of the 5 elements. Therefore, even if I only know the types of spirit herbs used in the pill recipes and don't know the specific quantities, I'm afraid I can still refine the pills. Furthermore, as long as this Xiao knows the main ingredients used in the pills, I can also try to concoct the supplementary ingredients. Wouldn't this Xiao be able to create his own pill recipes? The more Xiao Hua thought, the more excited he became. He took out the pill recipes for the high thunder pill, ageless pill, and so on for reference. Hee, it really is like this. Xiao Hua said with a smile. The spirit herbs in each pill recipe follow the Tao of yin and yang, the Tao of monarch and minister, and the principles of the 5 elements. In fact, some of the supplementary ingredients can be replaced by other spirit herbs with similar medicinal effects. While Xiao Hua was meditating on the pill recipes with his eyes closed, there were many cultivators surrounding him. After all, the flying sword that Xiaohua took out was really attractive. Xiaohua's flying sword was different from the flying swords of other cultivators. Most of the flying swords that Xiaohua took out were in good condition. Even if they were damaged, the damaged parts were still there. In particular, the quality of these flying swords was extremely good. After all, they were the flying swords of high-level sword-nurturing swordsmen and drawing sword swordsmen. This was really rare in EG. There were many cultivators who came to EG. Other than wanting to trade some spirit stones and spirit herbs, there were even more cultivators who didn't participate in the battle who came for the flying swords of sword cultivators. Xiaohua took out so many flying swords at once. How could it not attract the attention of others? However, there were many people looking, but not many people asking. After all, what Xiaohua wanted was the pill recipes. A single pill recipe could support a small sect. This was not something that flying swords could compare to. Thus, everyone whispered for a long time, but no one came forward to ask. I'm afraid there's no hope. Xiaohua already knew that the pill recipes couldn't be obtained so easily. He sighed and calculated the time. Just as he was about to get up, a cultivator dressed in camouflage opened his mouth. Fellow Taoist, what kind of pill recipe do you want? Oh, this fellow Taoist has a pill recipe? Xiaohua was delighted and said with a smile. If I didn't have a pill recipe, how could I come to ask? That cultivator was not polite and asked back. Xiaohua was actually hesitant. He wanted all the pill recipes of the Dawn Rain continent. The pill recipe of the Azure Spirit Pill. Fellow Taoist, you're really not polite. That cultivator wasn't astonished. He swept his gaze and said, Did fellow Taoist obtain these flying swords by killing swordsmen? And Xiaohua nodded. I was passing by a place and happened to encounter several sword cultivators. I killed them in passing and obtained these flying swords. Fellow Taoist intends to exchange pill recipes with me like this? The cultivator asked calmly. Oh, you really have the pill recipe of the Azure Spirit Pill? Xiaohua was really overjoyed. However, he wasn't anxious. Instead, he paused for a moment and said with a smile, Does fellow Taoist think this exchange is appropriate? Although these flying swords are very good, they're the best quality that I have seen in this year. That cultivator said in a deep voice, Unfortunately, the pill recipe of the Azure Spirit Pill is even more precious. Even if you take out all these flying swords, it's still not enough to offset the pill recipe. Fellow Taoist, I'm afraid you'll have to take out some spirit stones. Xiaohua shook his head and said, I only have these flying swords. If fellow Taoist wants them, then take out the pill recipe to exchange. I'm afraid it's not possible for me to take out some spirit stones. Then it's difficult. That cultivator naturally wouldn't give in. How about this? Xiaohua looked at the people at the side and transmitted his voice. Since fellow Taoist has the pill recipe of the Azure Spirit Pill, then you also have the pill recipes of the Origin Foundation Pill, Dry Separation Pill, and High Separation Pill. I don't need the complete ones. I only need the types and quantities of the spirit herbs used to refine the medicinal pills. A broken flying sword for 2 incomplete pill formulas, and a perfect flying sword for 5 incomplete pill formulas. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Oh, fellow Taoist is very interesting. That cultivator was slightly taken aback and also transmitted his voice. To tell fellow Taoist the truth, I do have these pill recipes. However, I don't know if fellow Taoist only wants the Foundation Establishment pill recipes or both the Qi Refinement and Golden Core pill recipes. There's no need for the Qi Refinement pill recipes, Xiaohua said with a smile. If fellow Taoist has the Foundation Establishment and Golden Core pill recipes, it's fine. And that cultivator said again, even if it's an incomplete pill recipe, it's still a secret to the sect. This old man can't easily reveal it. According to this old man's thoughts, a broken flying sword in exchange for a damaged Foundation Establishment pill formula, and a perfect flying sword in exchange for 2 damaged Foundation Establishment pill formulas. How about it? Seeing the Miho cultivator haggle, Xiaohua was delighted. He pretended to think for a moment and said, What fellow Taoist said is reasonable. However, this flying sword of eyes is indeed not bad. There's no reason to sell it cheaply. Furthermore, This poor Taoist has also taken a look at EG just now. This poor Taoist has never seen a flying sword of this grade. -8. Chapter 2280. As he spoke, Xiaohua casually took out a flying sword and said with a smile, "Didn't fellow Taoists see? The sword cultivator's primordial spirit is still inside this flying sword. It's really fresh." Hee. Erasing the primordial spirit of a flying sword naturally depends on cultivation. Nascent soul cultivators can do it with a wave of their hand. Golden core cultivators can do it in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, but foundation establishment cultivators? I'm afraid it'll take a lot of effort. Fellow Taoist doesn't use this thing, so there's no need to erase them one by one. This doesn't mean the flying sword is very good. That cultivator knew Xiaohua wanted to raise the price and said with a low laugh, "Hee." Xiaohua was slightly embarrassed, but he didn't relent and said, "Then I won't say much." A golden core cultivator's pill formula for a complete flying sword. 3 foundation establishment pill formulas for a complete flying sword. 3 foundation establishment pill formulas for 2 incomplete flying swords. It can't be lower, after all. That incomplete pill formula of yours doesn't have any real use. How about this? That cultivator pondered for a moment and transmitted his voice. This old man agrees to your request, but you have to honestly answer this old man's question. Moreover, you have to swear a hard oath. This. Xiaohua hesitated and shook his head. If this question doesn't involve I's privacy, I can naturally answer. But if, no. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, that cultivator waved his hand and said, "It has nothing to do with that. You'll naturally understand when you hear it." All right. Xiaohua nodded, but he didn't lose out and said, "However, I also have a question. I hope fellow Taoist can answer. Do I need to swear a hard oath?" The cultivator said with a smile. Can this old man decide after listening? Of course. Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. Fellow Taoist, estimate yourself how many pill formulas can you take out? Hee. That cultivator's divine sense swept over those flying swords, patted his hand, and took out a jade slip from his storage bag. He erased some of it with his divine sense and handed it to Xiaohua, saying, "Take a look. Is it compatible with your flying sword?" Great. Xiaohua took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine thoughts. His face was full of ecstasy. Although there were many prohibitions in the jade slip, each of them had the name of the elixir prescription, such as the Piyuan elixir, the Qianli elixir, and the Lingli elixir. There were also some elixir prescriptions that Xiaohua was not very familiar with. There were even 2 elixir prescriptions for practitioners of the Jindan realm. That's right, that's exactly the case. Xiaohua briefly examined it. It was exactly the same as the flying sword in the grid. He smiled and returned the jade slip to the cultivator. Fellow Taoist, you can undo the restriction and take the flying sword away. Good. Awesome. The Miyamo cultivator was obviously happy. He raised his hand, and all the flying swords were sucked into the space. Then, he unlocked the restriction on the jade slip and handed it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua checked it with his divine sense and also sucked the jade slip into the space. The surrounding practitioners saw that the Miyamo cultivator took the flying sword after the 2 of them talked for a long time. Their faces were full of astonishment, and they whispered to each other. They must be guessing the origin of the cultivator who took out the elixir prescriptions in exchange for the flying sword. Fellow Taoist, can you tell me why you want so many elixir prescriptions? The Miyamo cultivator asked with a smile. This question doesn't involve your secret, right? Of course it involves. Xiaohua answered without the slightest hesitation, but then he changed the topic. Of course, since fellow Taoist is so straightforward, this poor Taoist has no choice but to be frank. This poor Taoist wants to collect these pill formulas and see if he can concoct pills with similar medicinal effects but different spiritual herbs. Or I can figure out how to refine the elixir prescriptions according to the different spiritual herbs used in the elixir prescriptions. Xiaohua's words were right. He really had this idea in his heart. Oh, I see. The cultivator nodded. It seems that fellow Taoist is an alchemist and an alchemist with lofty ambitions. I really can't compare to you. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, I don't dare. I was just curious. I also have a question. I hope fellow Taoist can answer truthfully. Fellow Taoist, please, see if it's convenient to answer. The cultivator didn't dare to relax. Fellow Taoist has a lot of elixir prescriptions. You should also be an alchemist. Moreover, several of the elixir prescriptions are also precious. According to I's thinking, it's not possible to exchange them with the flying sword so easily. At least if it's I, it's definitely not so easy. But fellow Taoist almost agreed without hesitation. I want to know the reason. Xiaohua was of course very puzzled. He just came to take a slot, but he didn't expect that someone would be willing to take out the elixir prescriptions. Moreover, the number of elixir prescriptions far exceeded his expectations. Hee, people are too curious. The cultivator laughed and said, if I didn't exchange, you wouldn't ask anything. I exchanged with you, but you're curious. This question, on the contrary, doesn't make I suspect that you have other ideas for exchanging elixir prescriptions. You really want to find a new way to refine elixirs. However, if this old man told you the real reason, would you regret it? Of course. This old man is an alchemist. Xiaohua didn't expect that this question would actually dispel the cultivator's doubts. He said very proudly, how could this old man regret obtaining these elixir prescriptions? What if I told you that these elixir prescriptions were taken from other people? The cultivator asked. To be able to take so many elixir prescriptions, fellow Taoist methods are really amazing. What could Xiaohua say? He could only choose to believe. Actually, this old man exchanged with you for 2 reasons. The cultivator was frank and said after thinking for a while, there are actually 2 reasons? Xiaohua stared blankly. First, it's very simple. Fellow Taoist is also clear that elixir prescriptions without refining methods can't be considered elixir prescriptions. Fellow Taoist can't refine real elixirs, and incomplete elixir prescriptions can be exchanged for flying swords. Why wouldn't this old man do it? Second, there's nothing to hide. Fellow Taoist may not understand now, but in a few short years, or at most several decades, fellow Taoist will definitely understand. These elixir prescriptions are precious now, but when the day comes that fellow Taoist understands, you'll discover that these elixir prescriptions won't be worth a single spirit stone. The cultivator said frankly, since that's the case, why don't this old man take advantage of the time when these elixir prescriptions are useful to exchange for more spirit stones? Fellow Taoist's words make this old man even more confused. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Why would these elixir prescriptions be useless in a few years? Since fellow Taoist is an alchemist, could it be that you haven't discovered that the current spiritual herbs are increasingly different from before? The spiritual herbs suitable for refining elixirs are increasingly fewer? The cultivator sneered. Unless fellow Taoist isn't an alchemist. That's exactly the case. Xiaohua's mind lit up, and he slapped his head, saying, I've long heard of the changes in heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Isn't it because of this spiritual energy that there are increasingly fewer suitable spiritual herbs? Since there are fewer suitable spiritual herbs, and the newly born spiritual herbs can't be used, I'm afraid these elixir prescriptions will all become trash. Since this old man knew about this, why didn't I think of it? Fellow Taoist. As he spoke, Xiaohua reached out to grab the cultivator's Taoist robe, his mouth still muttering, this old man won't exchange with you. Return the flying sword to this old man. Go. That cultivator turned around and left, saying as he walked, this old man already said that you'd regret it, but you still won't admit it. This flying sword has already entered this old man's storage pouch. How can I return it to you? No. Xiaohua said anxiously. You didn't say it clearly just now. That cultivator laughed extremely happily. If this old man said it, would you still exchange? Immediately, that cultivator ran extremely fast, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Xiaohua pretended to chase, standing there laughing until his belly almost split open. Damn it, this young master really didn't think of anything else. Xiaohua saw that the cultivator was scared away by him, so he turned around and walked towards the center of the gathering place. As he walked, he laughed in his heart. The changes in heaven and earth's spiritual energy actually have such a big impact. Not only did the mortals' rice change, but even the spiritual herbs of cultivators also changed. This elixir also needs to change. If I take another step, won't the cultivation methods also change, and even the cultivation methods of the Taoist sect also change? Won't the method of selecting disciples also change? Is this also the reason why there are so many Qi refining disciples entering Foundation establishment in the Imperial Thunder sect recently? Is it also because of this that many disciples of cultivation aristocratic families awaken their true bloodlines? What a pity that cultivator only thought of these changes. But he didn't know that the spiritual herbs in this young master's space are different from those in Xiaoyu continent. With the original elixir prescriptions, they can still be refined. Ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua laughed again. But before he could finish laughing, he quivered. Io, the rice in this young master's space is useful for mortals. Then, what about spiritual herbs? Can this young master's spiritual herbs also replace the spiritual herbs in Xiaoyu continent? In this way, won't this young master make a fortune? Become the richest cultivator in Xiaoyu continent? Good, don't let others find out. Xiao Hua immediately stuck out his tongue, thinking of the consequences. He could tell his name to the mortals of the secular world, but how could he dare to tell cultivators? If others found out, wouldn't there be thousands of methods waiting for him? This secret was a secret that could control the cultivation direction of the entire Xiaoyu continent. This matter needs to be carefully considered, carefully planned. Xiao Hua inwardly pondered. I can't not take out the spiritual herbs and other things, but I definitely can't let others know that they came from this young master. As the saying goes, the heavenly Tao is fair. Perhaps Xiao Hua's actions were unknown to others, but the heavenly Tao knew. Those golden threads in Xiao Hua's Buddhist fire became increasingly dense. Admittedly, they were fine and couldn't be seen, but the color gradually deepened. Xiao Hua naturally didn't know this. He was still shocked that he discovered such a big secret, and didn't even have time to carefully look at the elixir prescriptions he just exchanged. He followed the crowd and walked towards the center of EG. Don't you all feel that letting Xiao Hua go now is a bit of bullying? Or even an unfair victory? Wait a bit. -8. Chapter 2281. Not long after, the crowd gradually became noisy, and the noise pulled Xiao Hua out of his contemplation. When Xiao Hua looked up, he saw a huge oval-shaped light shield not far away. It stood in the air and covered an area of about 10,000 feet. Moreover, vaguely, under the milky white light shield, there seemed to be a purple disk floating casually. When Xiao Hua got closer, he could clearly see that the disk was a platform. There was a square protrusion on it. At this time, there was no one on it. It was flying up, down, left, and right inside the light barrier. Everyone had already rushed to the left side of the light shield, but the light shield was not open, and their divine sense couldn't penetrate it. They could only see that it was empty inside. Xiao Hua removed the fog and pulled a cultivator next to him to ask for directions. He then walked towards the southwest corner. Before Xiao Hua arrived, there was a loud bang sound, and a voice sounded from the light shield. Fellow Taoists, I am Si Sinew, the ruler of this auction in Sky Patrol City. After 10 breaths, the auction's restriction will be opened. If you are a cultivator sent by the 3 cultivation countries to Sky Patrol City, you can enter with your token. If you are not participating in the battle, please take 5 high-grade spirit stones with you. When you pass through the restriction, use them as the entrance fee. Fellow Taoists without tokens and spirit stones can't enter the auction venue. Shua. As Si Sinew's voice fell, it was like the sound of water falling 1,000 feet. A milky white brilliance poured down from the top of the light barrier. In an instant, the light barrier became transparent, and a thin old man could be seen standing on the platform within the light barrier. Let's go. The cultivators around Xiao Hua were like flowing water again. They either took out their tokens or spirit stones and walked towards the light shield. This was also a good thing. Everyone entered the light barrier in an orderly manner. Xiao Hua looked for Ziyi and saw him. From far away, he could see the figures of Ziyi and good fortune behind the tide of people. Xiao Hua quickly walked over and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Ziyi has been waiting for a long time. I came late. Not too late, not too late. Ziyi smiled humbly. Now is just the right time. If we had to squeeze with them earlier, wouldn't that be bad? Fellow Taoist, you're right. Xiaohua looked ahead and said, let's go in as well. Of course. Ziyi didn't move. Instead, he smiled and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, weren't you fascinated by the auction? Or did you not even change out of the Imperial Thunder Sect's Taoist robes? I won't hide it from you, fellow Taoist. This Xiao hasn't participated in many auctions, and I've always gone alone, so I naturally have to wear the mystic robe. Xiaohua said honestly. This is the first time I've accompanied fellow Taoist Zai on such a mission. I don't even know if I'm wearing camouflage. I'm really lucky. Zi smiled. In order not to cause any trouble, let's put on the camouflage. As he spoke, Zi slapped his storage bag and took out a camouflage robe and put it on. Fulu also took out a robe, but he held it in his hand and didn't put it on. He should be waiting for Xiaohua. Seeing this, Xiaohua naturally didn't hold back. He put on the camouflage robe again and said with a smile, this way, this Xiao's heart seems to be a lot more at ease. AI, not bad. Zi sighed and said, although there will be good things in the auction, people's hearts are hard to fathom. There will always be people who are greedy. Our cultivation is shallow, so we can't not make plans. Let's go. If we don't go, the auction's restriction will close again. The two of them walked quickly. Xiaohua smiled and said, fellow Taoist Ziyi, did you find anything? Nothing useful. Ziyi shook his head. Don't look at how many cultivators and things there are in EG. If it's something useful, I didn't find even half of it. What about fellow Taoist Xiao? Hehe, this Xiao can't compare to fellow Taoist Ziyi. Xiaohua replied, this Xiao has to search for all the things I need, so everything I see is useful. In these 4 hours, this Xiao really did find a few useful things. Ziyi was very tactful and didn't ask what they were. Instead, he smiled and said, then I really have to congratulate fellow Taoist Xiao. In addition, this Xiaohua also hopes that fellow Taoist Xiao can obtain something in the auction later. Ha ha ha, forget it. Fellow Taoist Ziyi, didn't you see? There are many cultivators participating in the auction, and the number of things in their storage pouches is innumerable. This Xiao can't compare to them, so I didn't think about anything else. I just want to broaden my horizons. As they spoke, the two of them arrived at the light barrier. Xiaohua took out his command medallion and looked at Ziyi and Fu Lu. Sure enough, they each took out 5 spirit stones. Xiaohua passed through the restriction, and a strand of milky white light flew out from the light barrier and entered his command medallion. Then, it flew out again and covered Xiaohua's body, disappearing in a flash. Xiaohua smoothly stepped into the light barrier. However, Ziyi and Fu Lu were different. The milky white brilliance shot directly into the spirit stones in their hands, and with a slight twirl, the 10 spirit stones disappeared. The brilliance then completely enveloped the top of their heads and appeared to be slightly slower. When the brilliance disappeared beneath their feet, there were no abnormalities, and the two of them also entered the magic array. However, unlike Xiaohua's calmness, Ziyi and Fu Lu's expressions were slightly nervous. It was not until they entered the array that the faintly discernible worry in their eyes disappeared. Inside the array, there were so many people gathered that it was almost impossible to see the end. The lively scene was no different from the previous auction that Xiaohua saw. The only thing that made Xiaohua feel strange was that there were no seats in the auction in Sky Patrol City. Everyone was just standing there. Damn it, this Sky Patrol City is really stingy. Xiaohua smacked his lips a few times and thought to himself, entering EG requires spirit stones, and entering this auction also requires spirit stones. They don't even give out a futon, so I don't think there will be anything rare. Moreover, they don't even give out any number plates. It will be chaotic when the auction starts later. This scene, TSK. However, Xiaohua was still overthinking. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the round platform that had been quietly floating in the air suddenly blossomed with a layer of milky white brilliance and slowly descended, exactly at the same level as everyone. Sinew said in a clear voice, fellow cultivators, I welcome all of you to my Sky Patrol City. Regardless of whether you are participating in the battle or coming to support, I will bring my Sky Patrol City's City Lord, Immortal Shueyu, to welcome all of you." Then, Sisinyu respectfully cupped his hands to the people around him. When everyone saw this, they knew that the auction had begun, so they all shut up and quietly looked at the high platform. I won't mention those who have participated in the previous auction in Sky Patrol City. However, there are many cultivators who have come to my Sky Patrol City during this period of time, so I have to spend some time talking to them. Otherwise, when these cultivators see that my Sky Patrol City's auction is so simple, I'm afraid they will criticize us. They might even compare this place with the other 6 cities. This old man can't afford to bear such a crime of neglect. Ha ha ha. A few people who were closer to Sisinyu had already laughed. Oh, is it funny? As expected, Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. This young master is very suspicious that the few people who were secretly laughing just now are the disciples of Sky Patrol City. Those who have participated in the auction in Sky Patrol City during the Sword Principal battle must know that the number of people who can participate in the auction in Sky Patrol City has always been limited. The restriction and layout here are not like this. What you see in other big cities is the same in Sky Patrol City. However, because the battle has already begun and there are many cultivators who have come to Sky Patrol City, if we limit the number of people who can participate, it will definitely cause dissatisfaction among the cultivators. It is also unfair to those who are going to fight with the sword cultivators. Therefore, Sky Patrol City changed the rules here. No matter who it is, as long as they are a disciple of Path Sect, they can enter. Of course, since all of you are standing here safely, it is enough to show that you are all disciples of Path Sect, and there are no sword cultivators. Haha, that's right, that's right. The few people who were laughing also clapped their hands and shouted. This made Xiaohua even more suspicious. All right, I've roughly explained the reason why our Sky Patrol City is so slow. I'm sure the fellow Taoists who don't know what's going on already have an idea. I'd like to apologize to all of you. It's our fault for not treating you well. After Sisinyu finished speaking, he bowed again. When he got up, he said, in order to express our apology, since the Sword Principal battle began, all the items in the auction in Sky Patrol City had to pay half of the spirit stones. All elixirs, celestial weapons, and anything that is used to fight with sword cultivators will not be charged spirit stones. Then, Sisinyu said some polite words and said, since we don't use any number plates for the auction in Sky Patrol City, all the items will be taken away by paying with spirit stones. If any fellow Taoist bids blindly, the consequences will be very serious. Clap, clap. Sisinyu waved his hand. After listening for a long time, all of you must be tired of it. Since the auction has just begun, I will reveal a little. There are 2 good things in today's auction. One, of course, is that many of you are looking forward to it. Presumably, many of you came because of its reputation. So I am just giving you a heads up. The other thing? It is related to the spiritual weapon. Master Blacksmiths, please prepare yourselves. Perhaps, with this item today, a spirit tool will be born in your hands. Oh my God! Spiritual weapon? After listening to Sisinyu's provocation, even though Xiao Hua, who did not have much hope for this auction and only accompanied others to watch the fun, was moved in his heart. He thought, I have only heard of spiritual weapons. In the auction of the nascent soul stage cultivators in Haoming City, there were also people who wanted to find souls to refine spiritual weapons. Could there be a broken spiritual weapon in Sky Patrol City? -8. Chapter 2282. But that's not right. There are no nascent soul or spirit severing seniors in this auction. Who can repair the spiritual weapon? Hee, I understand now. All of this is just a gimmick. Sure enough, everyone thought the same as Xiao Hua. The cultivators around just whispered for a moment and changed the topic from the spiritual weapon to something else. They didn't care at all. Fellow cultivator. Ziyeh's strange voice came. Could it be that this Sky Patrol City really has a spiritual weapon? If so, I didn't come here in vain. Xiao Hua turned his head to look at Ziyi, who was under the bewildering insect. Ziyeh's cultivation was really nothing much, yet Xiao Hua was actually able to see through his bewildering insect. However, Ziye's bewildering insect seemed to be a high-level item. Xiaohua actually couldn't see Ziye's true appearance. Fellow cultivator, Xiaohua said earnestly, as if he was looking at a prodigal son who squandered his spirit stones. Didn't you see that there isn't even a nascent soul cultivator here? How can there be a spiritual weapon? Even if it's a broken spiritual weapon, it's impossible. In this old man's opinion, it's probably just a fragment of a spirit tool that they're using as a gimmick. You'd better not climb up the pole. At that time, you'll have wasted your spirit stones and your life. Haha, I understand. Z liked the feeling of being cared for. He smiled and said, I was wondering why the cultivators next to me didn't say anything. I see. I'm still inexperienced. That's right. If it's I won't even look at this spiritual weapon. When the auction is about to end, I'll immediately turn around, or I'll just watch from the side and watch others fight to the death. Xiaohua replied with a smile. You want me to waste my spirit stones for nothing? No way. While they were talking, the auction began. It was no different from the other auctions. Most of them were elixirs and spirit herbs. There was nothing new about them. However, Xiaohua's keen senses told him that the price of these elixirs and spirit herbs was obviously higher than the previous auctions. However, the price wasn't much higher. It was far from the gap that Xiaohua thought. Strange. Could it be that the Sky Patrol City didn't notice the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? This is impossible. Xiaohua felt a little strange. Even this young master knows that spiritual herbs and pills are gradually becoming rare. It's impossible for them not to know. As for the following items, there were also some damaged magic tools, which made Xiaohua even more puzzled. The price of magic tools seemed to be lower than normal, and in many cases, the amount of pills or spirit grasses requested for exchange was actually higher. What's going on? Xiaohua scratched his head. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua boasted that he didn't have much experience, so he turned his head and asked, Fellow Taoist, this old man is somewhat puzzled. Why is the price of this magic tool not as high as the spiritual grass? He remembered that the price of the previous magic tool was more than that. Could it be that now that there are flying swords for sword cultivators, everyone has switched to flying swords? Fellow Taoist, you're probably in the middle of the situation and can't see the crux of the matter. Z seemed to have known all along. He smiled and said, since the price of the magic tools is low, it naturally means that these magic tools are not worth that many spirit stones. On one hand, it could be that no one liked the artifacts, but on the other hand, is it because spirit stones are too precious? Ouch, that's right. Ziye's words were like a wake-up call. Xiaohua woke up from his daze and secretly pondered. This young master previously thought of the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The spiritual grass and medicinal pills would change, but I didn't expect that spirit stones would also change. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the spirit stones is originally there. Every piece consumed is one less piece, so it must be more precious. Unless there's a real need for medicinal pills, no one would take out spirit stones to consume. No wonder many things only ask for spirit stones during the bidding and nothing else. So much so that the 3 sects of the state of Shi would send out disciples to forcefully seize the spirit stone veins of other sects. The result of the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the influence is really too great. All right, fellow Taoists, now we're bidding for a batch of medicinal pills used by Foundation establishment cultivators. Azure Spirit Pill, Chief Cattail Pill, Bright Flower Pill, Foundation Pill, etc. Please place your bids. Sinew waved his hand, and a brilliance flashed on the table in front of him. Suddenly, a dozen jade bottles appeared. He said again, this batch of medicinal pills only requires high-grade spirit stones. Please place your bids. This young master saved money this time. Xiaohua's purpose in coming to the auction was actually the Azure Spirit Pill. He wanted to get more Azure Spirit Pills to improve his cultivation, but he had obtained the incomplete pill formula of the Azure Spirit Pill and knew the scarcity of spirit stones. Naturally, he wouldn't take out any spirit stones to waste. This time, he really became a spectator of the auction. Bored, Xiaohua looked at Ziyi again. To his surprise, Ziyi didn't bid from the beginning to the end, not even once. It's not strange. Everything about this guy's cultivation is probably prepared in his family. What's the point of him bidding? He's just here to watch the fun, Xiaohua thought with a smile. After a while, the medicinal pills were all snatched up by a group of cultivators. Si Sinew appeared again. Speaking of the changes in the auction in the Sky Patrol City, not only are there more fellow Taoists, but the items for bidding have also changed. Now, the items that can appear in the auction, in addition to medicinal pills, magic tools, and other items, are flying swords, sword techniques, and other items for sword cultivators. Next is to bid for a batch of flying swords and sword techniques. As Si Sinew waved his hand, a row of flying swords of different shapes appeared on the table, as well as some sword-shaped jade slips. Great! Xiaohua was overjoyed when he saw the sword slips. Although the orthodoxy left by Li Xiubai and Immortal Brightsword was very precious, after all, it was the sword intent left by a nascent soul cultivator. It required Xiaohua to comprehend the sword intent to step into the Hall of Sword Cultivators. Xiaohua only took a fancy to the Sword Heart Elemental Seed technique and didn't comprehend any sword intent at all. Moreover, with Xiaohua's current flying sword cultivation, he couldn't comprehend any sword intent at all. If he wanted to accept the 9 stars illuminating the sun, or even Immortal Brightsword's dear sword intent, he still had to start from the most basic sword cultivator. If he could find some sword slips here, he could solve the problem of cultivation. If I had known earlier, I would have looked through the storage bags of sword cultivators. Xiaohua was a little regretful at this time. He wanted to improve his magic power and didn't think much about sword cultivators. Can I take a look at these flying swords? A cultivator not far from Xiaohua raised his hand and shouted, I also want to take a look. At the same time, several people raised their hands and shouted. Of course, many of the cultivators here had flying swords as their magic tools. They also wanted to get a sword cultivator's flying sword from this auction in Sky Patrol City. Please. Si Sinew slapped his hand, and the circular platform flew to a place not too far away from the cultivators. Then, he channeled his magic power and several milky white rays of light shot out from the edges of the circular platform. Like a rainbow bridge, they landed before the cultivators. I also want to take a look. Xiaohua hesitated a little and also raised his hand. A similar rainbow bridge fell in front of him. Xiaohua stepped on the rainbow bridge, and the rainbow bridge automatically shrank, bringing Xiaohua and the other cultivators to the high platform. Fellow Taoists, please take a look. Si Sinew waved his hand, and a trace of brilliance flashed on the flying swords and sword slips, removing the restriction that protected them. Xiaohua scanned with his divine sense and knew that the quality of these flying swords was not much different from what he had obtained before. He was too lazy to look at them. He watched the other cultivators reach out and pick up their flying swords. Then he waved his hand and a palm-sized sword slip fell into his hand. When Xiaohua's divine sense entered it, he saw that there were some restrictions that blocked the contents. He could only see some so-called names, such as Yin-Yang Sword Technique, Green Bamboo Sword Technique, and so on. Xiaohua looked at it for a moment, then put down the sword slip and continued to look at the others. In fact, there was no difference whether he looked or not. It was just that the sword slips were different and the names inside were different. Xiaohua thought. Since the captured flying swords are similar, then the things in the storage bags of sword cultivators should be similar. Moreover, this young master also obtained the storage bags of a few 6th-grade swordsmen. This young master doesn't believe that there are no sword slips in those storage bags. After a moment, the cultivators looked at all the flying swords. Like Xiaohua, they each picked up a sword slip and looked at it. Naturally, they looked at it again and put it down. After Si Sinew sent Xiaohua and the others off, he said, Fellow Taoists, these fellow Taoists have already looked at the flying swords and sword techniques. They don't have any objections. These flying swords and sword techniques are no different from those of sword cultivators. The fellow Taoists who captured the flying swords have already bid. They only want spirit stones and spirit herbs of equivalent value. They don't want any magic tools or magic treasures. If any fellow Taoist is interested, you can bid. As he spoke, Si Sinew flicked his sleeve and some words were found on the flying swords. It was precisely the starting price of these flying swords. Haha, Fellow Taoist, what are you doing? Below the round platform, the crowd of cultivators had already begun to bid, the voices of bidding rising and falling one after another. Meanwhile, Xiaohua took out his storage pouch with a lowered head. Midnight couldn't help but ask, "If you don't have enough spirit stones, you can tell this young one. This young one still has some spirit stones here." "No need. I want to see how many spirit stones there are in the storage bag." Xiaohua waved his hand. The storage bag he took out was naturally a sword cultivator's. Moreover, for the sake of insurance, he first took out the storage bags of the two twin swordsmen. Fortunately, he saw a green wooden staff-like sword technique in the first storage bag, so he didn't need to take out the second one. "Not bad. I don't need to spend spirit stones." Xiaohua clapped his hands and put away the storage bag. A charming smile appeared on his face as he quietly watched the competing bids. Under the Miho, Ziye's eyes had a somewhat strange expression, because others might not notice, but he clearly saw that Xiaohua's storage bag belonged to a sword cultivator. It was different from the storage bag of a cultivator. After waiting for the bidding of the flying swords and sword techniques to end, Xiaohua slightly relaxed. Not for anything else, but the price of these flying swords was not much different from the price he sold them to the Miho cultivator. Even if he suffered a loss, it wasn't too big of a loss. The bidding of the sword cultivator's items is over. Next should be the equipment cultivators and beast cultivators. Unfortunately, the war has been going on for more than a year, and their items are still rare. The fellow Taoists present can work harder and kill more equipment cultivators and beast cultivators in the war, so that we can obediently give our spirit stones to fellow Taoists. Si Sinew said with a smile. -8. Chapter 2283. Ha ha ha, there was a burst of laughter in the hall, as if tool cultivators and beast cultivators were a piece of cake. Hee hee, tool cultivators and beast cultivators. Interesting. Xiaohua's heart itched when he heard this. He wanted to see these two strange cultivation methods as soon as possible. Just when Xiaohua was laughing secretly, Si Sinew said again, "Of course, in addition to tool cultivators and beast cultivators, there are also soul cultivators items from Ming Mountains. However, as everyone knows, soul cultivators items are very rare and mysterious, and they don't look good. They are either bones or skeletons, and some are even poisonous. In the previous auctions, no one bid for soul cultivators items, so this time, I didn't take out any ordinary soul cultivators items. Now, what we are bidding for is a soul tool." "Oh, soul tool? Take it out quickly." A few impatient cultivators shouted, "I have heard of soul tools, but I have never seen one before." "Good." Si Sinew clapped his hand, and a bright light flashed on the table, and an extremely ugly toad appeared on the table. "Ah, this is a soul tool?" Everyone was in an uproar. Everyone scanned the toad with their divine sense, and they knew that this shriveled toad was a toad without any magic power fluctuation. If it wasn't a soul tool, they would have thought it was a toad's corpse. "Fellow Taoist C," a cultivator asked, "is there a way to use this soul tool?" "No," Si Sinew said without hesitation, "this soul tool must be obtained by a sword cultivator from a soul cultivator. If they don't know how to use it, how can I know? This old man took it out to bid because I want to see which sect or family has a secret technique that can use it. Isn't it just a toad?" Many cultivators shook their heads, and they were not even interested in going on the stage. On the other hand, Xiaohua's spirit was roused. His primordial spirit was in the depths of the dark clouds, trying to comprehend soul cultivation techniques. He hadn't made any significant progress so far, so if he could get this soul armament, he might be able to reap some benefits. Of course, Xiaohua was not stupid enough to go out to check at this time. He just stood quietly and watched the development of things. Sure enough, Si Sinew smiled bitterly, flicked his sleeve and said, "Since no fellow Taoist is interested, this old man will take it. In the future, when there are more disciples from aristocratic families, perhaps." "Don't worry," Xiaohua said with a smile. "How do we bid for this item? If the number of spirit stones required is too low, this old man will take it." "Oh." Si Sinew was taken aback. He glanced at Xiaohua and hurriedly said, This is the first soul tool to be traded in my Sky Patrol city. The price is not high, just 1,000 top-grade spirit stones. When Xiaohua heard this, he waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist C is asking for too much. This old man is curious and wants to play with it. Not to mention 1,000 top-grade spirit stones. Even if it was 100, this old man still wouldn't pay." The current Xiaohua's technique of loosening the reins only to grasp them better is truly adept. Haggling wasn't like cutting at the waist, it was like cutting at the foot. "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking," Sinew answered, putting aside the fact that this soul item is a mysterious treasure from millions of Ming mountains. Even if fellow Taoist had risked his life to capture it, there is no way we can offer such a low price. If fellow Taoist really wants it, 800. Seeing that Sinew actually said that he was going to risk his life for the sake of his fellow Taoists and didn't even mention the base price of this soul tool, Xiaohua knew that he was the only one who had inquired about this item. The price offered by the Sky Patrol city wasn't high at all. "How about this?" as fellow Taoist C said. "For fellow Taoist who risked his life on the battlefield, this old man will offer 300 spirit stones." Xiaohua sighed. "If 300 top-grade spirit stones are not enough, then I will have to ask fellow Taoist C to keep it for the next bid." "Okay." Sinew nodded, then looked around and asked, "Which fellow Taoist wants to raise the price?" Unfortunately, the whole place was silent. After all, this soul item was useless. 300 top-grade spirit stones were equivalent to 30 foundation establishment pills. For most of the cultivators in the Qi refining and foundation establishment realm, this was already a high price. How could anyone raise the price? "This soul item is yours." The round table flew to Xiaohua. Sinew flicked his hand, and the toad flew to Xiaohua. "Thank you, fellow Taoist C." Xiaohua reached out and grabbed the toad, looked at it with disdain, and then threw it into the storage bag. Then, he took out a small storage bag and threw 300 spirit stones into it and handed it to Sinew. When Sinew flew away again, Z asked in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist, this thing is a waste, and how high can a soul item be obtained from a sword cultivator?" If this young man guessed correctly, this must be the most basic soul item. Fellow Taoist took out 300 top-grade spirit stones at once. "It's a bit of a loss." "AI, how can I not know?" Xiaohua sighed. "But this was also obtained by fellow Taoist who risked his life. If I bid for this soul item, wouldn't that fellow Taoist have an extra 300 top-grade spirit stones? Wouldn't he use these spirit stones to bid for the medicinal pills and magic tools he needs? Wouldn't he be able to kill more sword cultivators? Fellow Taoist, sometimes you can't just look at the value of this thing. You also have to look at the story behind it." Fellow Taoist Xiao. Z was so excited that he actually called out Xiaohua's surname. This young man really didn't expect that you could actually think so much. This young man really didn't know you in vain. Hee, I have always been very low-key. If it weren't for fellow Taoist forcing me, I would definitely bury these words deep in my heart. Xiaohua said rather shamelessly. At this time, Sinew on the round platform laughed loudly again. "The most difficult soul item to bid for has been auctioned today, which is an excellent sign. Next is the treasure of today's auction. This is also the purpose of many fellow Taoists coming to my Sky Patrol city to bid for it." Rejuvenation pill. Rejuvenation pill. A female cultivator's voice sounded like madness. Hee, before this old man can say it, some fellow Taoists already know what this old man is going to say. Sinew's face revealed a smile. However, this old man still has to introduce this rejuvenation pill. I believe that all fellow Taoists know about Tongmu City's face-retaining pill. That is the spirit pill that many female Qi refinement cultivators yearn for day and night. That is a miraculous medicine that can retain the youth of a young female cultivator. To tell you the truth, when this old man was young and handsome, he had also been to Tongmu City. Unfortunately, this old man was no match for those delicate female cultivators. I was kicked out of Tongmu City by them with a single kick. They even said that this old man was a pretty boy. So how could he compare to their delicate looks? Ha ha ha. Everyone in the hall laughed loudly. At that time, This old man also felt that it was reasonable in his heart. A female cultivator's appearance is the love of the heavens. How could this old man, a pretty boy, compare to them? Sinew still said seriously, however, after this old man became a pretty boy, I realized that something was wrong. Youth, that is what every cultivator should have. Whether it is a pretty boy or a pretty girl, they have the right to retain their youth and beauty. If time could turn back, this old man would definitely bid for that face-retaining pill. Some cultivators laughed mockingly. Fellow Taoists, he has already become a pretty boy, so don't think about the face-retaining pill anymore. You can bid for this rejuvenation pill and become a pretty boy again. Ha ha ha, that's right. Sinew laughed and said, this old man also has the same intention. However, looking at so many pretty girls, this old man can't help but feel soft-hearted again. Let's give this opportunity to them again. What a pretty boy. A female cultivator laughed coquettishly and said, this favor, we will remember it. Ha ha ha. All the cultivators laughed again. Fellow Taoists, you all know that the face-retaining pill is very miraculous. Moreover, the miraculous thing is not the pill formula, but the rare face-retaining grass. This thing is extremely difficult to grow. Many cultivators with heaven-defying methods are unable to cultivate it. It can only rely on the natural growth of the dawn rain continent. Sinew said again, Tongmu City also has some kind of secret technique that allows them to bid for one face-retaining pill every month. For so many years, this secret has never been leaked, which really makes this old man surprised. However, since a few years ago, perhaps due to the change in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, Tongmu City can only bid for one face-retaining pill every year. That face-retaining pill has almost become an extinct item. Fortunately, the heavens didn't cut off our dawn rain continent's female cultivators' love for beauty. Our Sky Patrol City is fortunate enough to obtain a secret technique that allows us to refine this rejuvenation pill. Not only can it retain the beauty of young female cultivators, but it can also restore the beauty of female cultivators who have lost their looks, allowing them to regain their youthful radiance. What? Is this true? Ziyi, who was beside Xiaohua, stuttered. He wasn't asking Xiaohua, but looking at Sinew on the high platform who was trying his best to bluff, he muttered to himself in a low voice. Of course it's true. Even if Xiaohua didn't say it, a cultivator refuted, fellow Taoist, didn't you see that the people gathered in front are all female cultivators? When they were bidding before, they never bid. They were just waiting for this rejuvenation pill today. When Xiaohua heard this, he looked as far as his eyes could see. Indeed, the people in front of him were all female cultivators. Most of them were dressed in camouflage robes, and a few of them were young and didn't have high cultivation. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over them, but none of the camouflage robes could penetrate. Obviously, their cultivation was at Foundation Establishment and Golden Core. According to the situation of the female cultivator that Xiaohua met before, these female cultivators were probably all at Golden Core realm. Even those young female cultivators were entrusted by their masters to come and bid. Youth is fleeting. Radiant splendor is difficult to retain. Time is like water. The years are like songs. The face-retaining pill in this world is already a blessing from the heavens. Now, a rejuvenation pill has actually appeared, which can bring back youth. This is simply the jealousy of the heavens. Ziyi clearly felt that it was inconceivable, and he muttered. Seeing such an arrogant aristocratic family's disciple become infatuated, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel proud. His little tail was raised higher than anyone else's. Sigh, I don't know which alchemy grandmaster is so generous. Xiaohua sighed and said, this kind of thing is something that I can't even dream of. -8. Chapter 2284. Xiaohua, that hypocrite. He was afraid that people would associate this rejuvenation pill with him, or proudly show off in front of others. Unfortunately, Ziyi only muttered to himself. Looking at the high platform, Sinew carefully took out a small jade bottle from his storage pouch. That jade bottle was also out of the ordinary. It was milky white in color, and there were golden threads entwined inside. sweeping it with his divine sense. The magic power fluctuations in the golden threads were very abundant. Obviously, there was an extremely powerful restriction. Looking at the surface of that milky white jade bottle, a lifelike woman in palace attire was sitting in front of a bronze mirror. She seemed to be dressing up, and in that bronze mirror, the woman's beautiful and picturesque features were reflected. What was special was that in that bronze mirror, not only was there the face of the female cultivator, there was also a reflection of the window frame. In the reflection, there was a ray of sunlight outside the window, a few peach blossoms, and half of a green tree faintly dancing in the wind. Wonderful. Isn't it the spring scenery dancing in the spring breeze, the spring lady shyly dressing up? Z couldn't help but clap his hands again. Just based on this jade bottle, I don't know how much thought that pill refining grandmaster put into it. Even if I don't look at that rejuvenation pill, my curiosity has long been aroused by this item. Yes, this grandmaster's thoughts are really ingenious. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't give Qian Diheng any jade bottle, and he never thought of doing anything with it. However, in his heart, he admired Qian Diheng's methods. If it was just his ugly face-retaining pill, perhaps it could cause some sort of commotion, but it would definitely only be taken seriously after it was consumed. How could there be this? The rejuvenation pill hadn't even appeared yet, and just this jade bottle that was nothing had already caused everyone to go crazy? I'm afraid this is the legendary buying the casket and returning the pearl, Xiao Hua secretly said. Even this jade bottle cost a lot of spirit stones. Alas, only this kind of ingenious jade bottle is worthy of the rejuvenation pill. However, this was only the beginning. Si Sinew threw the jade bottle into the air. Si Sinew flung his robe, and the jade bottle emitted a layer of green light. The jade bottle suddenly enlarged, and the woman in the palace dress in front of the bronze mirror slowly stood up and flew out of the jade bottle. Moreover, as the woman flew over, the wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and so on continued to attack. The woman's face gradually aged under the attack of the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The traces of time were deeply engraved in her face. Her cloud-like hair gradually turned snow-white. However, there seemed to be anger in the woman's eyes. She waved her hand, and the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning all fell into her hand. It was a bright and sunny day, but this sunny day couldn't hide the loneliness and regret in her eyes. At this moment, the woman raised her head again and looked at Harui. She raised her hand, and a rainbow-colored brilliance appeared on her bark-like hand. That brilliance was directed at Harui. When the light faded away, an extremely ordinary medicinal pill appeared in the woman's hand. Seeing this, how could the cultivators not know? This medicinal pill must be the rejuvenation pill. Sure enough, the woman's eyes were filled with joy. She waved her hand, and the medicinal pill entered her mouth. Immediately, the woman's body was covered in a boundless green light. Tens of thousands of flowers had descended from the sky, and when they were all floating around the woman, they actually became her flowery clothes. As the flowers bloomed like brocade, the woman turned her head around again, and no one was able to see her face. However, when everyone was puzzled, a bronze mirror appeared in front of the woman's chest. The bronze mirror overflowed with brilliance. When the brilliance fell on the 10,000 flowers, the woman's abnormally shy face appeared in the bronze mirror. It seemed to be angry and happy at the same time. This face was exactly the same as the one in the mirror. It was even more delicate. What was even more different was that the joy in her eyes couldn't be concealed. Wonderful! Even if this rejuvenation pill was refined by Xiao Hua, he, the initiator, was also fascinated by the scene in front of him. His heart tightened along with the woman's displeasure. When the woman became happy again, his heart relaxed and he couldn't help but praise. When the word wonderful came out, Xiao Hua realized that the spell on the jade bottle actually had the effect of bewitching people's hearts. Damn it! This Qian Diheng, how many spirit stones did he spend? Xiao Hua couldn't help but scream in his heart. However, before he finished sighing, he heard a female cultivator shout hysterically, "This concubine offers 50,000 top-grade spirit stones. This rejuvenation pill, This concubine must have it today. Well, Xiaohua didn't need to think anymore. Qin method finally showed its effect. 70,000. Immediately, another female cultivator shouted. 100,000. 120,000. There was no need for Sisinyu to say another word. Those female cultivators, especially the middle stage and early stage gold core female cultivators, they all walked into the trap one after another. Good. I'm rich, I'm rich. No one knew better than Xiaohua how many rejuvenation pills Qin had in his hands. He simply didn't dare to calculate. Even if Xiaohua counted the 10 fingers of his 2 hands and the 10 fingers of his 2 feet, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to calculate how many spirit stones he could earn. Hearing the number of spirit stones continuously rising, Xiaohua's eyes also continuously emitted golden flowers. He simply didn't see Ziyi beside him, who had been trying to raise his hand. However, just as Ziyi raised his hand, before he could say the number of spirit stones, he was immediately cut off by another female cultivator. Ziyi had no choice but to open his mouth again, but he still didn't have time to do so. Another female cultivator intercepted him again. Every time he was a little late, and every time he called out a price, it was a little less than the others. 250,000. Ziyi was simply hysterical. With great difficulty, he raised his hand and raised the price of the spirit stones by more than 30,000. Young master! Fu Lu immediately panicked. He immediately pulled Ziyi and said, "We came here. How can we have so many spirit stones?" However, without waiting for Ziyi to answer, a female cultivator immediately dispelled Fu Lu's worries. 260,000. 270,000. Ziyi didn't hold back and called out while the iron was hot. 280,000. At this time, there were fewer and fewer female cultivators who could bid. Clearly, many female cultivators still underestimated the temptation of this rejuvenation pill, and the spirit stones they brought were still not enough. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over those female cultivators who didn't wear camouflage clothing, and he knew. 300,000. Ziyi still called out. Young master, Fu Lu was anxious and said in a low voice, "Young master, this servant really didn't bring so many spirit stones. If you bid so high, what will you give them? Don't you still have that thing? If you can't do it, then give it to them," Ziyi said without care. These words scared Fu Lu so much that his heart suddenly flew to the sky. He wanted to stop Ziyi's hand, but he didn't dare. After thinking for a moment, he had no choice but to look at Xiaohua. Xiaohua naturally didn't want Ziyi to spend spirit stones for no reason, but he didn't know how to stop Ziyi. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua sighed and said, "Alas, it's enough to have I as a gigolo in this world. Why does fellow Taoist also want to be a gigolo? Even if you want to be a gigolo, you don't have to fight for this rejuvenation pill, right? I heard that Tongmu City has a face-retaining pill. It's good that you bid for it. There's no reason for you to fight for it with these gold core realm women. Can you fight for it with them?" "I have no choice but to do it." Ziyi naturally understood that Xiaohua was talking about him. He took the time to explain and shouted again, 320,000. "Alas, it's my fortune to obtain it, but it's my fate to lose it. Fellow Taoists still can't see through it." Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said, "The feelings of traveling alone on a snowy night have long disappeared." Ziyi hesitated for a moment, and the remaining 3 female cultivators raised the number to over 350,000. Ziyi stretched out his hand, and his fingers trembled in the air a few times. He put them down again and sighed. "Forget it. This thing can only be found by chance. Even in my dreams, I really didn't expect to encounter this thing here. If I had been prepared earlier, this thing would be extremely useful to me. So it's like that." Xiaohua nodded, but didn't ask too much. He said, "You can't do it this time, but there's still a next time. Didn't you hear what the Chancellor said? There will be more every month." "Alas, let's not talk about whether or not I can come next time. Just by looking at these gold core female cultivators, I don't know how many female cultivators will come next time. I didn't have a chance this time, and I'm afraid I won't have a chance in the future." "Then forget it," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Maybe you'll be able to get this thing in the future even if you don't bid." "Hee hee, Not every cultivator is as lucky as fellow Taoist to be able to obtain a youth-retaining spirit herb when they were young. Ziyi said with a smile, I've become a gigolo, but fellow Taoist is still a gigolo. No wonder you didn't bid. TCH, even if I wasn't a gigolo, I wouldn't bid for this rejuvenation pill. Isn't it better if we go to Tongmu City to look for the youth-retaining pill? Xiaohua said disdainfully. Didn't you hear what the Chancellor said? Tongmu City's youth-retaining pill is already auctioned once a year. Ziyi said with some regret. Oh, isn't that right? That slut Chun Yi's youth-retaining grass was destroyed by Sun Qian. Although I saved it, it was still damaged. Isn't this related to Tongmu City's youth-retaining pill? Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization, and he pondered in his heart. Then, this flower burial manor is surely related to Dawntree City. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get revenge. Moreover, I have to be careful not to let Tongmu City find me. That Shinny might find trouble with me. Just as Xiaohua and Ziyi were chatting, the rejuvenation pill finally fell into the hands of a bewildered cultivator. The final price was actually 380,000 top-grade spirit stones. At this time, this huge number could no longer attract Xiaohua's attention. The more spirit stones there were, the more it was just a number. It was far from being able to attract Xiaohua's attention when it was a pile of spirit stones in front of him. Are we going to leave? Xiaohua said with a smile. -8. Chapter 2285. When the auction ends, people will rush out and it will be crowded. I have no interest in bidding for some bullshit spiritual weapon, so it's better to leave early. Hehe, that's right. Ziyi knew that although the auction in Sky Patrol City was a little simple, there would be no problem in terms of crowding. However, after hearing Xiaohua's words, he nodded and smiled. And I also feel a little aggrieved, so it's better to walk in the snow now. Okay. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and grabbed Ziyi's sleeve. I have the same idea. Just as Xiaohua and Ziyi turned around, they heard Si Sinu's loud voice from the high platform. The famous rejuvenation pill finally has a happy ending. I'm sure many of you have regrets, but it's okay. The most famous alchemy master in Dawnrain continent has reached an agreement with my Sky Patrol City. He will provide a rejuvenation pill every month at this time. Those who didn't bid for the rejuvenation pill can come to my Sky Patrol City a month later, and your wish will definitely come true. And this is the last item in my Sky Patrol City's auction. Si Sinu said mysteriously. In fact, this item may not be as expensive as the rejuvenation pill. However, it is indeed very rare, and most of the cultivators here have never seen it before. They have never even heard of it. This is the reason why I put it last. This is the original body of the beast cultivator from Hung Country. Everyone, please take a look. This is a cultivator who fought with the beast cultivator from Hung Country. After the beast cultivator was injured, the beast cultivator transformed into a spiritual beast. As Si Sinu spoke, he patted the storage bag at his waist, and a holy light flashed. A spiritual beast of a few feet in size with a shining body appeared in the air. This isn't this, the commonly seen duck? A female cultivator who was slightly closer couldn't help but laugh. How did this become the original body of the beast cultivator? Hehe, fellow cultivator, is your duck so big? Does your duck have a demon core in its body? Your duck soul is extremely condensed, comparable to a cultivator? Si Sinu asked 3 questions in a row, which made the female cultivator blush. This is... Xiaohua had just turned around with midnight. When he heard the commotion on the stage, he also unintentionally turned around to take a look. However, when he saw the spirit beast on the high platform, he could not help but feel astonished. It was a spirit beast that was slightly bigger than an ordinary child, and its body was covered in milky white fur. On its large head, there was a flat and wide beak. Its eyes were very large, but they were slightly closed. Occasionally, there would be a flash of light in its eyes, reflecting bits and pieces of light. Its body was not much bigger than its head, but it also had 2 short and thin legs. Above the legs were 2 duck feet with webbed feet. Wasn't this a duck commonly seen in the mortal world? And it was an underage duckling. However, for some reason, when Xiaohua saw this duck, An inexplicable sense of familiarity welled up in his heart. How is this possible? When have I ever seen this duck? Xiaohua felt that it was inconceivable. Although that sense of familiarity was vague, just a trace, Xiaohua still shook his head slightly. But at this time, the duckling opened its eyes slightly, as if it was looking around. Its sad and helpless eyes were like human emotions, sweeping across everyone. Although the duckling's eyes did not stop on Xiaohua's body, the primordial spirit in Xiaohua's hand of karma suddenly rippled. Could it be? The thing I sensed in the Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment was this duckling? Xiaohua was baffled. What kind of karma does this beast cultivator have with me? Fellow Taoist, are you not leaving? Midnight was originally walking, but when he saw Xiaohua standing there in a daze, he could not help but ask, "Oh, there's no hurry," Xiaohua said with a smile. "I have never seen any beast cultivator before. I want to see what exactly this beast cultivator is." "AI, how can this be a beast cultivator?" Midnight said disdainfully. "After a beast cultivator is injured, it is still a human. Even if the beast cultivator's realm is very high, it is still in a half-beast, half-human state. It can't be a complete spirit beast. It's a little strange." "Oh, fellow Taoist, you seem to be very familiar with beast cultivators." Xiaohua replied casually. "Haha, it's nothing. I have dabbled in a lot of things, but I don't know much about them, so my cultivation is not high." Midnight's eyes hidden in the maze looked at Xiaohua with concern, but Xiaohua did not care and asked casually, "I see. Fellow Taoist, you seem to have found something strange?" Seeing that Xiaohua was not paying attention, Midnight said with a smile, "The ruler of Sky Patrol City has some skills. This duckling's soul is said to be solid, comparable to a 7th grade or 8th grade spirit beast. If the soul can be extracted, it may be possible to refine a spirit weapon. Well, the most interesting thing is that this 8th grade spirit beast was seriously injured and did not have the slightest strength to fight back." Xiaohua said with a cold snort, "It can only let others extract its soul." "Oh, fellow Taoist, you seem to have the slightest sympathy for this beast cultivator." Midnight was slightly stunned and smiled. "It doesn't match your identity as a cultivator at all. This has nothing to do with Tao sect and beast cultivators." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "I just don't want to see this kind of cruel situation." "Oh, even sword cultivators and beast cultivators can't do it?" "Yes, no one can." Xiaohua said with a smile. "However, please don't provoke I. If you provoke I, even if you poke I with a sword thousands of times, I won't sympathize." "Ha ha ha." Midnight laughed. "Fellow Taoist, you are really sincere." Fellow Taoists, everyone saw it. Si Sinew pointed with his finger and said, "There is no restriction on this beast cultivator's body at all, and there is no magic power in its body. Fellow Taoist who wants to refine a spirit weapon, or who has a secret method to use souls, please bid. This is a soul comparable to an 8th grade spirit beast. If not for this sword cultivator battle, no beast cultivator would come knocking on our door. How could we see it? Fellow Taoist, do you think anyone will bid?" Xiaohua was not in a hurry to bid, but asked Midnight, "I'm afraid there won't be anyone." Midnight laughed. "The higher the grade of the spirit beast, the more solid its soul, and the more powerful the magic power and method to extract it. This spirit beast is about to die, and from what I see, its soul is already showing signs of dissipating. I'm afraid that in a few days, this spirit beast will die. During this period of time, not to mention preparing to extract the soul, it will be difficult to even leave Sky Patrol City. Besides, the soul of a dying spirit is not easy to extract. If it's not done well, the soul of the person extracting it may be implicated." "Oh, what do you mean?" Xiaohua did not understand. Cough, cough. Fu Lu coughed twice, as if his throat was swollen. "Hee, I don't really understand this, but it seems to be related to the destination of the soul." Midnight ignored Fu Lu and said with a smile, "Ghost Manor?" Xiaohua thought. He had seen ghost cultivators and also encountered evil spirits. Naturally, he knew that the soul went to a mysterious place. This Ghost Manor was only a title, and even cultivators did not know where it was. The soul has its own destination. If it is blocked, of course, there will be something wrong. If it is not for great magic power, who would dare to do it? Xiaohua nodded and said, "Actually, that's not necessarily the case." Midnight said with slight hesitation, "It is said that many devil cultivators also extract the souls of mortals or cultivators, so there is nothing wrong with it." Haha, who cares? Xiaohua laughed. "I don't want to extract the soul of others, so why think so much? Fellow Taoists, see this thing. Is there a reserve price?" A female cultivator said with overflowing love, "If it is not too high, I will take it. Look at how pitiful it is. I'm afraid it won't live for long." Haha, this fellow Taoist's kindness is naturally good. Sinew clapped and said, "Unfortunately, you forgot that it is a beast cultivator. A beast cultivator who killed countless cultivators of my sect. According to that fellow Taoist, if it were not for the fight between fellow disciples, he would not have been able to injure it to this extent. Because of this, in order to sympathize with those fellow disciples who died early, that fellow Taoist took out this thing to bid. Otherwise, he would have killed it long ago. Well, it is related to the battle and the cultivators who risked their lives. The price of this spirit beast is definitely not low." Xiaohua secretly curled his lips and thought about whether he should participate in the bidding. "There must be a price." The female cultivator said, "Fellow Taoist, see, don't keep us in suspense. Quickly say it." Haha, this thing is the body of a beast cultivator for the first time. In order to encourage fellow Taoists to kill beast cultivators in the future, my Sky Patrol City cannot set the price too low. Sinew said seriously, "This beast cultivator. The reserve price is 100,000 top-grade spirit stones. As long as it is spirit stones or spiritual herbs of equivalent value, it is acceptable." "Damn, no way. So high." Xiaohua immediately retreated. "Damn it, who knows what this spirit beast is for? There is no reason for me to spend so many spirit stones. Just for a trace of karma enlightenment? It is really not worth it." The miser Xiaohua's little abacus was once again making pitter-patter sounds non-stop. "Fellow Taoists, see, are you mistaken?" Another female cultivator also felt indignant and said coldly, "For the rejuvenation pill just now, let's not talk about it." Fellow Taoists, see, did not even mention the reserve price and raised the number of spirit stones so high. This little thing is so pitiful. Even if it is a beast cultivator, its lifespan is nearing its end. Your Sky Patrol City just let it go. It is also a merit. There is no reason for such a high reserve price. Who will bid? Hee. The experts see the artistry. The laymen see the excitement. Sinew also retorted without holding back, "Fellow Taoists, see, since you don't understand, don't say so much. I am afraid that all the fellow Taoists here who know the secret technique know that the price I quoted is definitely not high. You see, in the end, the price of this thing will definitely surpass the rejuvenation pill." -8. Chapter 2286. "Impossible," the female cultivator said angrily, if, unfortunately, before she could finish speaking, an indifferent voice rang out, "This old man bids 110,000. Ah, there's really a sucker." The female cultivator looked up at a cultivator who was dressed in a mesmerizing robe and only said the first half of the sentence. She did not dare to say the second half. "Look, I know that someone must be able to see the extraordinariness of this item. The soul of this beast cultivator is really precious." Sinew clapped his hands and urged the round platform to fly to the opposite side. "Haha, since someone is bidding, I won't be polite. 120,000. A cultivator on the other side also spoke. Everyone looked over and saw that one of them was dressed in a mesmerizing robe. "I bid 130,000. Immediately after, an old man in the late stage of foundation establishment followed suit, 140,000. Not long after, the number increased to 250,000. Compared to the rejuvenation pill, the bidding of the beast cultivator was a little dull and did not rise one after another. However, it was extremely stable and increased by 10,000 without any hesitation. Hee. No pressure if I don't participate. Xiao Hua watched the lively scene from the side and was secretly happy. I don't have so many spirit stones in my storage bag. Let's just watch. Who cares about karma? It's a little strange. Z frowned and whispered as if he thought of something. Cough, cough. Fu Lu's throat continued to be swollen and painful. 300,000. 310,000. Only 2 mesmerizing cultivators were left to bid. Everyone held their breath and waited to see who would be the sucker in the end. However, after another 2 rounds, the mesmerizing cultivator opposite Xiao Hua bid 340,000 and took the mesmerizing cultivator, revealing a cultivator in the middle stage of golden core. Marshal Uncle Lee? Immediately, a few cultivators in the late stage of foundation establishment near that cultivator were terrified and saluted him. Well, wait a moment. The golden core cultivator waved his hand and said, "This is the auction of the Sky Patrol City. Don't be so polite." Immediately, the gold core cultivator raised his head and said to the confused cultivator who had been bidding with him, "Fellow cultivator, I am Li Chengxiu from the Immortal Music Sect. I am also the leader of the Immortal Music Sect in the Sky Patrol City's conference hall. This beast cultivator's soul is comparable to an 8th-rank spirit beast. It is precisely what my Immortal Music Sect's Taoist Master Blue Feather wants. He had been searching for a long time, but he never thought that I would meet him here. Therefore, fellow Taoist, please be lenient and give this item to I. I will remember this favor. If you have any errands in the future, please come to me with this item. I will definitely not refuse." With that, Li Chengxiu waved his hand, and a crimson token flew toward the Miho cultivator. It floated in front of the cultivator. Forget it. The cultivator pondered for a moment and sighed. Since Senior Blue Feather wants it, I don't dare to fight for it. Let's do as fellow Taoist Li says. With that said, the cultivator reached out and took Li Chengxiu's token. When Li Chengxiu saw this, he let out a long sigh and cupped his hands. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Then, he cupped his hands and said to the crowd, especially to Si Sinew, "I have been a little rude, but in order to express my apology, I will increase the spirit stones to 400,000, more than the rejuvenation pill just now. I hope Sky Patrol City can fulfill my request." Haha, Senior Li didn't do anything wrong. What can Sky Patrol City blame him for? Si Sinew waved his hand and said, "Since it's a senior from Sky Patrol City's conference hall, this beast cultivator's body naturally belongs to Senior Li." Xiao Hua had seen Li Chengxiu in the cave residence in Blazing Fire Mountain in Haoming City. He also saw Taoist Master Blue Feather looking for the 8th-rank Spirit Beast Soul at the Nascent Soul Conference in Xiankong Pavilion. He knew that this thing was something that Li Chengxiu must have. He rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, I didn't care about any karma, otherwise. At this moment, the spirit beast that had been floating in the air all this time moved, and a clear cry resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone was startled, and even Xiao Hua's heart shook. Obviously, the spirit beast was very dissatisfied when it saw that it was being auctioned. As the spirit beast moved, there were traces of blood in the depths of its throat. The blood was actually blue. Ouch! Ziyi, who had been frowning and thinking, suddenly whispered at this moment, "I was wondering why this spirit beast was so strange. This spirit beast seems to be a kind of demon." Cough, cough, cough. Fu Lu coughed hard. However, the 2 words demon struck Xiao Hua like a thunder tribulation. Demon? Demon realm? Damn it, I knew it. How could there be any karma for no reason? This spirit beast is the Empress. No, it's definitely not the Empress. It should be Dire. It's that Dire. Xiao Hua almost jumped up and almost pulled out his hair and even his hair. Fortunately, it didn't delay things. If I gave Dire to others because I was unwilling to part with the spirit stones and let others extract her soul, how can I face the Empress? Even if the Empress has an accident, I won't have the face to face the world. 500,000. Xiao Hua did not hesitate to raise his hand and shouted like a thunderclap. What? Everyone was shocked. The entire auction was silent. Even the sound of a needle dropping could be heard. Li Chengxiu, who had already flown to the edge of the round table with the help of the rainbow bridge released by Si Sinew, also had a big change in expression. He had already announced the name of Xianlu sect, removed his own hair, and increased the price of the spirit stones to 400,000. If someone increased the price, then it was slapping his face. It was not putting Xianlu sect in his eyes and slapping Xianlu sect's face. Even Si Sinew was shocked. This fellow, are you sure you want to bid? Si Sinew did not ask the price of the spirit stones, but asked Xiao Hua if he wanted to bid. What? The auction of Sky Patrol City does not allow I to bid? Xiao Hua said calmly after being anxious, or Sky Patrol City belongs to Xianlu sect. This beast cultivator is already from Xianlu sect? This? Of course not. Si Sinew was also a little embarrassed and said, since fellow Taoist is willing to increase the price, my Sky Patrol City will also welcome you. We will definitely not stop fellow Taoist from increasing the price for some reason. In fact, Si Sinew hated Xiao Hua to death, but he could not stop Xiao Hua from bidding in front of so many cultivators. After all, if Li Chengshu could come, the other seniors in the main meeting hall could also come. Even those who bid with Li Chengshu just now, or those who bid with Li Chengshu now, could be those seniors. Okay, since you can increase the price, then I will increase the price. Hearing Si Sinew's words, Xiao Hua's heart was completely relieved. This fellow Taoist. Li Chengshu was on the Rainbow Bridge, so he could neither advance nor retreat. He was very embarrassed, but still said, I have just said that this is something that my Xianlu sect's Taoist master Lan Yu wants. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist. If fellow Taoist lets go, I will also give you a token. Hee, why would this old man want that token? Xiao Hua sneered. This old man also wants to use this thing to refine a spiritual weapon. Huh? Li Chengshu was slightly surprised. To be able to refine a spiritual weapon, one must at least be a nascent soul cultivator. This was not something that he could provoke. But immediately, he realized that if Xiao Hua was a nascent soul cultivator, he would have already made a move. Why would he wait until now? Even if he took the Mimi like himself, who would dare to compete? Moreover, he had never heard of a nascent soul cultivator in Sky Patrol City other than Shui Yu's Taoist. Thinking of this, Li Chengshu sneered. If fellow Taoist wants to refine a spiritual weapon, I'm afraid that's a fool's dream. I'm afraid fellow Taoist will have to cultivate for another 1,000 years. I can't refine a spiritual weapon. Fellow Taoist doesn't have to worry about it. Xiao Hua laughed. Perhaps I will also bring it to the seniors in my sect? This item was bid by this old man first. This old man wants to see which sect in the Cultivation 3 Kingdoms will not give my Xianlu sect face. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed. This old man gives your Xianlu sect face, but what about Sky Patrol City? What about the rules of this auction? Will Sky Patrol City still hold auctions in the future? Seeing that Xiao Hua avoided the topic and focused on the trivial, Li Chengshu was also helpless. Senior Li, please come up. Si Sinew was very tactful and activated his spiritual power. The rainbow bridge twitched and Li Chengshu's figure gradually rose to the high platform. We still have to abide by the rules of Sky Patrol City's auction. However, this high platform is nothing. Senior Li, it's good to come up and take a rest. Well, thank you, young friend Si. Li Chengshu nodded and said, since this fellow Taoist wants to continue bidding, this old man will continue to bid with him. This old man bids 510,000. 600,000. Xiao Hua did not hesitate. 610,000. Li Chengshu was not in a hurry, as if he knew that Xiao Hua would not continue to bid. At this time, Xiao Hua and Li Chengshu's situation was exactly the same as when he bid for the MO slip with the Mi cultivator. He really understood the mood when he bid for the MO slip with him previously. He wanted to bid for the body that was suspected to be Dai, or at all costs. However, the other party also had the intention to win. Obviously, Li Chengshu had revealed that he was backed by the Xianlu sect, while Xiao Hua could only fight alone. 700,000. 710,000. 1,000,000. Xiao Hua shouted unceremoniously. However, it was his straightforwardness that made Li Chengshu sneer. Li Chengshu glanced at Xiao Hua, then looked at Si Sinew and said, young friend Si, Although the auction in Sky Patrol City does not have a number plate and there is no registration, if someone bids but does not have spiritual stones, what should we do? Hee. Of course there are rules. Si Sinyu knew what Li Chengxiu meant and said loudly, those who raise the price without due consideration will not only have all their spirit stones and other items confiscated. Depending on the severity of the case, their limbs will be broken, and their cultivation will be crippled if the case is light. -8. Chapter 2287. Well, this rule is fair. Li Chengxiu clapped his hands and took out a storage bag. He said, this is the storage bag that I brought with me today. Although there aren't many spirit stones in it, there are some spiritual herbs, elixirs, and some magic weapons. The total value of all of them is about 700,000 spirit stones. Of course, the remaining spirit stones, after I bid for this beast cultivator, I will immediately give them to you. Very good. Si Sinyu took it, scanned it with his divine thought, and returned it to Li Chengxiu with a smile. It's as what Senior Li said. All right, since little friend Si has already seen this old man's storage pouch, then this old man would like to let Chancellor Si look at this fellow Taoist who bid against this old man. This old man is extremely doubtful if he has that many spirit stones. Li Chengxiu coldly looked at Xiao Hua. Oh? Xiao Hua was a little flustered and said anxiously, there is such a rule in the auction? Well, I will let this fellow know. Si Sinyu nodded and said, now the two fellow cultivators have bid for more than 1,000,000 spirit stones, which is really rare in the auction of my Sky Patrol City. I can only see if you have enough spirit stones to participate in the auction. Humph. Xiao Hua sneered. He knew that even if there was no such rule in the auction, with the name of Xianlu sect, the Sky Patrol City would definitely have this rule out of thin air. At this moment, Xiao Hua's hand sank. When he looked down, he saw a huge storage bag was stuffed in his hand by Ziyi, and he heard Fu Lu coughing in his ear. Xiao Hua's heart was warm. He did not expect that Ziyi, a cultivator whom he had just met for half a day, would take out his storage bag and let him bid. This was something that he did not take out when he bid for the rejuvenation pill. Haha. Xiao Hua laughed and did not return the storage bag to Ziyi. He stuffed it into his arms and said loudly, since I dare to bid, of course I have spirit stones. However, I just want to know, now that the price has reached 1,000,000 spirit stones, fellow cultivator Li only has 700,000 spirit stones. Where did you get the 300,000 spirit stones from? Fellow cultivator Li will not leave the auction and go back to Xianlu sect to find spirit stones, right? Hee, fellow Taoist, you worry too much. Si Sinyu said with a smile, once you leave the restriction of this auction, you will immediately lose the right to bid. All the spirit stones must be handed over on the spot. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and pondered for a moment. Then, he reached into his bosom and took out a storage pouch. With a toss, he flew up to the stage. Fellow Taoist, would you like to take a break on the platform as well? Si Sinyu took the storage bag and asked with a smile. No need. This old man disdains to associate with poor people who are just here to make up the numbers. Xiao Hua confidently raised his head. Unfortunately, this confidence was blocked by the fog, so no one saw it. Pauper? Li Chengxiu almost fainted from anger, but he still looked at Si Sinyu. Fellow Taoist Si. Xiao Hua smiled and said, this storage pouch can only be inspected by fellow Taoist, and it can only be used for this auction. Don't let others see it. Of course I know. Smiling, Si Sinyu opened the bag of holding and scanned it with divine will. Instantly, he gaped in shock, but only for a moment. A strange expression appeared on his face as he looked over at Xiao Hua. What? Fellow Taoist Si, are the spirit stones inside not enough? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Of course. Si Sinyu hurriedly nodded. More than enough. Then, fellow Taoist Li, what about the remaining 300,000 spirit stones? This old man is very curious. Where did he get them? Xiao Hua said coldly, fellow Taoist Li, could it be that you want to keep your spirit stones here? Humph. Seeing Si Sinyu's expression, Li Chengxiu's heart chilled, but he didn't seem to be worried. He took a step forward and waved his hand, saying, disciples of a mortal music sect, This is the time to test you all. Someone blocked so many cultivators from various sects and provoked our immortal music sect. We absolutely cannot lose this face. Take out all the spirit stones, spirit herbs, and other items you all have on you. This old man doesn't believe that all the spirit stones of our immortal music sect disciples can't compare to him. Yes. Throughout the entire auction, many disciples stood out, and some were even dressed in camouflage clothing. These disciples gathered their spirit stones, medicinal pills, and other items into the hands of a late-stage Foundation establishment disciple, and let this disciple pass it to Li Chengxiu on the high platform. Haha. Li Chengxiu laughed complacently and raised his hand. Little friend, see? How about this? There's no need to bid. My immortal music sect spirit stones are all here. Take a look. If any fellow Taoist can also take out this many spirit stones, then this beast cultivator's body will be this fellow Taoist's. That's right. If Xiaohua alone took out the same amount of spirit stones as all the immortal music sect cultivators present, would Li Chengxiu still have the face to bid with him? Everyone looked at Xiaohua, and they quietly waited for Xiaohua to remove the camouflage clothing. Then, with a single call, many disciples came forward and took out spirit stones, spirit herbs, and other items. The two large sects began to fight. Naturally, Li Chengxiu also had the same plan. He actually wanted to see which cultivator sect wanted to go against his immortal music sect. Ziyi, who was behind Xiaohua, also had a frown on his face. He couldn't figure out why Xiaohua, this Imperial Thunder Sect's Foundation establishment disciple, would lose his mind like this and suddenly want to fight over an inexplicable spirit beast with a golden core cultivator from Immortal Music Sect. The storage pouch he gave to Xiaohua was all he had, although it didn't have 1,000,000 spirit stones inside. If Xiaohua really wanted to bid, adding what he gave, it should be close to 1,000,000 spirit stones. However, even if he added his storage pouch, the two of them still couldn't compare to the storage pouches of so many Immortal Music Sect disciples. Xiaohua, by doing this, not only would he not be able to bid for that spirit beast, he would also offend Li Chengxiu, a middle-stage golden core cultivator. Should we? Ziyi was somewhat hesitant. Fu Lu, who was beside him, coughed softly again, but he didn't even call out the two words, young master. Looking again at the cultivators present, Ziyi was just about to clench his teeth when he heard Xiaohua laugh loudly. Immortal Music Sect has disciples. Does this old man not have disciples? This old man has plenty of spirit stones here. As he spoke, Xiaohua reached out with his hand and took out another storage pouch. Throwing it onto the high platform, he called out, "Little friend, see, take a look. Inside this pouch, is it worth the spirit stones of Immortal Music Sect?" This. Sisinyu took the storage pouch and swept it with his divine sense. The astonishment on his face was even greater. "These are my Immortal Music Sect spirit stones." Seeing Sisinyu's expression, Li Chengxiu's heart thumped and sank. Somewhat apprehensively, he handed the storage pouch to Sisinyu. Sisinyu didn't take Li Chengxiu's storage pouch. Instead, he turned around and put the spirit beast into his storage pouch. Holding it in his hand, he said to Xiaohua, "This senior, please come up the stage." If Senior Li's storage pouch doesn't have enough spirit stones, this beast cultivator is Senior's. And if Senior can't take out more spirit stones, this beast cultivator is Senior Li's. Good. Xiaohua nodded. Sisinyu waved his hand, and a milky white rainbow bridge stretched out from the edge of the high platform and fell right under his feet. This old man still has a suggestion. Xiaohua stepped onto the rainbow bridge. At the same time, his figure flew towards the high platform, and at a neither fast nor slow pace, he said, "This old man is determined to obtain this item." On the other hand, fellow Taoist Li is also the same. Therefore, this old man and fellow Taoist Li must have a conflict. Previously, if fellow Taoist Li didn't reveal his true face, then it would be easy to deal with. Especially now, fellow Taoist Li actually wants all the Immortal Music Sect disciples to take out their spirit stones. This old man can of course do the same, but that will certainly hurt the relationship between my sect and Immortal Music Sect. Now is the time for a great battle, so it's obviously not appropriate. We should unite our strength to deal with the sword cultivator and the beast cultivator. As he spoke, Xiaohua had already landed on the high platform. Hearing Xiaohua put a big hat on him, Li Chengxiu sneered. Xiaohua's words made him seem guilty instead. Although these words sounded dignified on the surface, in essence, it was a retreat and compromise. Li Chengxiu's previous nervousness eased a bit. Senior, you're right. Si Xinyu nodded and said, the original intention of my Sky Patrol City to set up the auction is to solve the urgent needs of fellow Taoists. Fellow Taoists can find suitable treasures. If there is a rift between fellow Taoists because of this, it is really not what my Sky Patrol City wants to see. All right. Li Chengxiu nodded and said, this old man understands. If this fellow Taoist withdraws now, this old man will still be grateful. What fellow Taoist did just now, this old man will treat it as a little joke. Hee, this old man has already said that this item is something this old man must obtain. At this time, how can this old man give up? Xiaohua ignored Li Chengxiu and looked at Si Xinyu instead. This old man means that after this old man wins the bid, I request to leave this auction first. Moreover, this old man doesn't want Sky Patrol City to do anything inappropriate. Otherwise, this is easy, Senior. Please rest assured. Whether it is Senior Li or you who wins the bid, you will be sent out first. Moreover, my Sky Patrol City will definitely not have any places to follow or spy on you. If my Sky Patrol City can't guarantee this, how can my Sky Patrol City establish itself in the 7 major cities of the country of Xi? Si Xinyu answered with certainty. Very well. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, let's do it this way. Let this old man see how many spirit stones fellow Taoist can take out and how much more I have to pay. Seniors, please wait a moment. Only then did Si Xinyu catch Li Chengxiu's storage bag. He scanned it with his divine sense, but there wasn't the slightest ripple on his face. He raised his head and looked at Li Chengxiu. Senior Li, is this all you have? Yes. When Li Chengxiu heard Si Xinyu's words, he immediately felt that something was wrong and added, however, this old man still has a magic weapon. Sorry, Senior Li, this beast cultivator is only for spirit stones and spiritual herbs. I don't want any magic weapons or magic weapons. Si Xinyu said expressionlessly, since Senior Li doesn't have any more spirit stones, this junior will have to ask this senior. -8. Chapter 2288. Good. Li Chengxiu suddenly felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. A bad premonition? Senior, based on Junior's rough inspection, the things in your storage bag are slightly lower in value. Si Xinyu looked at Xiaohua and said respectfully, if you don't have other spirit stones to take out, this beast cultivator's body is Senior Li's. Of course, if you feel that Junior's estimate is not accurate, Junior can ask a professional consecrator to come and let them make a detailed estimate. Oh? Li Chengxiu raised the corner of his eye, feeling that this happiness came too suddenly. Who knew? Before a smile appeared on Li Chengxiu's face, Xiaohua smiled and said, this old man recognizes little friend C's estimate. I wonder if fellow Li over there agrees? Of course, this old man recognizes Sky Patrol City very much. I also recognize Governor C. How can I not recognize it? Hearing Xiaohua's question, Li Chengxiu said with a smile on his face. AI okay. Xiaohua nodded. This old man admits, Xianlu sect's disciples are really rich. How much less is this old man compared to them? Not much, about 30,000 top-grade spirit stones. Si Xinyu smiled and said, if we ask the consecrators to check carefully, it should not be this number. Li Chengxiu smiled. At this point, not to mention 30,000 top-grade spirit stones, he couldn't even take out 5,000. Not to mention Xiaohua's strength alone against all the Xianlu sect's disciples. Sure enough, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, return this old man's storage bag to this old man. Yes. Facing Xiaohua who could take out so many spirit stones, Si Xinyu did not dare to be slow and respectfully handed the storage bag to Xiaohua. Hee. Li Chengxiu smiled and stretched out his hand. He could almost see Taoist Master Blue Feather's happy face when she saw this beast cultivator. It was really not easy to win the favor of a nascent soul cultivator. Unfortunately, before he could straighten his hand. Xiaohua brushed the storage bag at his waist, and his hand fell on another storage bag. Then, without hesitation, he handed it over and smiled. Little friend, see, take a look. Are these spirit stones enough? What? Li Chengxiu's hand stiffened, and the smile on his face also froze. A voice roared in his heart, motherfucker. Who is this guy? How could he take out so many spirit stones at any time? These are all the spirit stones of my Xianlu sect's disciples. Xinyu wasn't surprised, but he didn't understand why Xiaohua didn't take out a separate storage pouch, but instead put the items into another storage pouch. Taking the storage bag, Xinyu solemnly immersed his divine sense into it. After looking at it for a while, he raised his head and said, Junior has carefully looked through it. Senior has definitely taken out more than 30,000 top-grade spirit stones. All right. Xiaohua waved his hand and didn't say anything. Seniorly, what do you think? Xinyu raised his head and asked, Do you need me to get a consecrator to examine it carefully? No. No need. Although Li Chengxiu really wanted to see what exactly was inside Xiaohua's storage pouch and what exactly was more than his, he was still a golden core cultivator, the one with the highest cultivation among everyone present. Earlier, when he had a lot of spirit stones, he didn't ask anyone to inspect it. Now that he had less spirit stones, he naturally didn't have a reason to ask anyone to inspect it. That's good. Since Senior Li doesn't have any objections, this beast cultivator's body is this senior's. Xinyu made the final decision and handed the storage pouch that he previously received the duck to Xiaohua. Boom! A clamorous sound rang out, and the entire auction was in an uproar. Everyone, including the Xianlu sect's disciples, they all clamored. Everyone was watching the excitement, but no one expected that the final result would actually be Xiaohua's highest bid. This was simply a miracle. And at this time, everyone only had one thought. This senior dressed in camouflage. How many spirit stones did he take out in the end? As for which sect Xiaohua was a cultivator from, no one paid any attention to it. Just as everyone was discussing spiritedly, Xiaohua took the storage pouch and immersed his divine sense into it. After confirming that the duckling was inside the storage pouch, he tied the storage pouch to his waist and cupped his hands, saying, Many thanks, little friend C. You're welcome. Xinyu clapped his hands again and took out a pure white token. He respectfully handed it to Xiaohua and said, This item is a token of my Sky Patrol City, specially prepared for cultivators like Senior who bid extremely high prices. With this item, Senior can enjoy a lot of convenience in bidding. The specific matters are explained in the token. Senior can take a look and you will know. Very good. Xiaohua unceremoniously took it and smiled. Little friend C, please send this old man out. Yes. Xinyu glanced at Li Chengxiu and didn't rush to return the storage pouch to him. Instead, he formed a seal and hit the high platform. A burst of milky white brilliance gushed out from the ground of the high platform, like a fountain, covering Xiaohua's body. When the brilliance fell, Xiaohua had already disappeared. Thank you, Senior Li, for coming to my Sky Patrol City's auction. At this time, Xinyu respectfully handed the storage pouch to Li Chengxiu and smiled apologetically. I hope Senior can understand my Sky Patrol City's difficulties. I hope Senior can get what he wants next time. It's okay. Li Chengxiu felt bitter and reached out to take the storage pouch. Then, he said unwillingly, Actually, there are some rare items that you can ask the people in the meeting hall to see if my disciple needs them. Then, you can bring them here to bid. I will not take out any spirit stones that the Sky Patrol City is not satisfied with. This way, there won't be an awkward situation today. Yes, Junior understands. I will definitely report to the City Lord later and ask for his decision. Xinyu respectfully agreed. Junior will send Senior down. Okay. Seeing the appearance of a rainbow bridge, Li Chengxiu tactfully stepped on the rainbow bridge and his figure descended from the high platform. Fellow cultivators, this auction has come to a successful end. After more than a month, there will be a rejuvenation pill, or a beast cultivator's body in the auction. I will bring my Sky Patrol City to invite all of you to come to my auction again. With the wave of Sinyu's sleeves, Several milky white halos emerged from the edge of the high platform and rushed to the light shield of the auction. In a moment, the light shield disappeared. Everyone's faces were still filled with excitement. Those who were familiar with each other talked with each other, and the auction poured out from all directions. Li Chengxiu's face was gloomy, like a rock standing in the water. He did not move at all. His eyes were looking at the place where Xiaohua stood just now. The faces of the dozens of Xian Lu sect disciples around him were also extremely ugly. All the cultivators who walked past them had a face of ridicule, curiosity, or disdain, but their footsteps were all the same. Let's go. After a moment, Li Chengxiu waved his hand and seemed to have made some decision. He turned around and walked away with the crowd. In the air inside the light shield, the high platform floated in the air, but Si Xinyu on the high platform did not immediately leave. Instead, he looked at Li Chengxiu. Looking at Li Chengxiu's back drowned in the crowd, he sighed and looked at the two storage pouches in his hand. His face showed astonishment, and he muttered, "Which senior is this? He actually has so many spiritual grasses. Doesn't he know that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed? Spiritual grasses that are over 10,000 years old have already become treasures? Using one means one less. It's simply more precious than spirit stones. TSK, it's all thanks to Xianlu sect. If it weren't for them, how could this senior take out so many spiritual grasses? This he never even dreamed of it. It's also strange. It's just a beast cultivator's body. The consecrators only felt that it was strange, so they took it out to bid and opened everyone's eyes. That soul can admittedly be extracted, but how could refining a spirit tool be so simple? I didn't think that Xianlu sect's Taoist Master Lan Yu had this intention. Moreover, this senior seems to be in urgent need. He actually has so many spiritual grasses. This matter still needs to be reported to the city lord. If Xianlu sect and this senior have any disputes, maybe it's this C's fault. It's a pity that this beast cultivator's body only appeared for a fleeting moment. I don't know when I'll be able to see it again. This spirit stone is not easy to earn. However, the rejuvenation pill was easy to deal with. The mysterious cultivator had made it clear that after these 5 rejuvenation pills were auctioned off, another 5 pills would be sent over. As long as I bid well in the Sky Patrol City, there would be more every month. The effect of this rejuvenation pill is 100 times better than the ageless pill. Coupled with the shortage of the ageless pill in Tongmu City, it's a good opportunity for my Sky Patrol City to make a name for myself and suppress Tongmu City. In the future, when anyone mentions the rejuvenation pill, I'm afraid that they will think of my Sky Patrol City. Si Xinyu thought silently. When the cultivators in the auction had all retreated, he activated the array again. The light shield once again appeared and covered the surroundings. Then, his figure disappeared from the high platform. After leaving the auction at midnight, he couldn't help but hear Fu Lu's nagging along the way. "Young master, this old servant didn't remind you that Xiaohua is a swindler. You actually gave him everything in your storage pouch. Even that thing. That so-called beast cultivator is obviously a spirit beast. No matter how precious its soul is, how can it be compared to that thing? The cultivators in Sky Patrol City are blind. How can they value that thing with spirit stones? Now, we don't even have spirit stones. How can we use the teleportation array in Sky Patrol City? Don't we have to fly back? Fu Lu, you've said it 100 times. If you don't feel thirsty, I'll feel that my ears are ringing." Zi waved his hand indifferently and said, "Although that thing is precious, if it wasn't for the spirit stones, how could Xiaohua successfully take down that spirit beast? Since he likes that spirit beast, he naturally has his reasons for liking it. I only know that he has a strong character and is untainted by worldly affairs. Why would I be reluctant to part with it?" "Young master, I'm afraid it's like what my old friend said. You read too much." Fu Lu smiled bitterly. -8. Chapter 2289. In the end, Fu Lu didn't dare to say the word stupid. He sighed and said, "Didn't you see that as soon as Xiaohua got the spirit beast, he immediately ran away? He didn't even leave a message talisman for young master. He clearly had the idea of taking advantage of young master. Hehe, Fu Lu, you're wrong. Zi said confidently. If I'm not wrong, fellow Taoist Xiao must be waiting for me outside EG. He's definitely not the kind of person who leaves without saying goodbye. This old servant doesn't agree. Fu Lu shook his head. No matter how you look at him, he doesn't look like the kind of cultivator who can take out hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. Young master, he's only in the early stage of foundation establishment. It's impossible for him to have so many spirit stones. I'm still refining Qi. Zi rolled his eyes. How can I have so many spirit stones? How can he compare with young master? Young master is AI. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. Won't we know when we get outside EG? Zi sighed and waved his hand. What a pity about the rejuvenation pill. If I could get it. Hehe, young master wants the rejuvenation pill. It's better to listen to Xiaohua and directly bid for the ageless pill. Fu Lu seemed to know what Zi was thinking and laughed. It's really not worth it for us to exchange that thing for the rejuvenation pill. At this point, Fu Lu's face became sad again. In fact, it's also not worth it to exchange for the spirit beast. Young master, this old servant didn't remind you that Xiaohua is a swindler. You actually gave everything in your storage pouch to him. Even that thing. Midnight couldn't help but cry as well. In fact, Zi also understood that Fu Lu's words weren't without reason. That thing was really precious and was used by Zi to save his life this time. But he himself also didn't understand. At that time, when he saw Xiaohua suddenly bid and was suppressed by Li Chengxiu, he also became anxious in his heart. His blood surged, and he thought of the words for a friend, even if it cost you a knife. He immediately stuffed his storage pouch into Xiaohua's hands. Xiaohua didn't even look at it and stuffed it into his arms, then continued to bid. In the end, when Xiaohua won the bid for the spirit beast and floated away, he didn't even look at him. Not to mention Fu Lu's reminder, he himself was also somewhat regretful at this time. Although he defended Xiaohua, he was really afraid that Xiaohua would not even say goodbye and directly leave. However, things didn't go as Zi had imagined. His heart sank when he saw the items he had gathered and the dozen or so burly followers he had brought with him. It was extremely deep. Young master, look, it wasn't this old servant who reminded you that Xiaohua is a swindler. You actually gave him everything in your storage pouch. Even that thing. Shut up. Zi could not hold it in any longer. He waved his hand and said, Let's go. We'll leave Sky Patrol City now. Yes. Fu Lu hurriedly shut his mouth and looked at those people. With a wave of his hand, the dozen or so people didn't dare to make a sound as they followed closely behind the gloomy midnight. After walking for a while, Zi finally couldn't help but turn around and ask, When you were waiting outside EG, did anyone leave a message for me? The dozen or so followers looked at each other in bewilderment. Sigh, forget it. Zi waved his hand and didn't speak anymore. At this time, one of the followers was clever and said carefully, EG has always been very quiet. Few people came out. Just before everyone came out, a cultivator who was enchanted quickly came out and stood in front of us for a moment. However, he didn't say anything. He just waved his hand and walked in the direction we came from. Yes, there was such a person. Another follower said anxiously, that person was very strange. When he waved his sleeve, he stomped his feet as if there was snow on his feet. Ha ha ha. These words were like the spring sunshine, illuminating Zi's gloomy mood. Zi laughed loudly and turned around. How could I forget? Why didn't I believe in fellow Xiao? Let's go quickly, follow me. I'll let you see, Fu Lu, the friends I made are definitely not the kind of people who leave after taking advantage of others. Fu Lu seemed to understand at this time, and a rare smile appeared on his face. Needless to say, Xiaohua was in the tea house at this time. Of course, Xiaohua didn't look for any room upstairs. Instead, he casually found a place on the first floor that was close to the door. There was a pot of spirit tea placed on the table in front of him. He narrowed his eyes and drank mouthful by mouthful, but his mind entered the space behind his head. When Xiaohua came out of EG, he released his Buddhist awareness. After confirming that no one was following him, He took out his spirit storage bag and sent the duck into his space without saying a word. Although he wasn't sure whether this duck was dire or not, he absolutely couldn't take the risk. He absolutely couldn't let Dyer's duck die in front of his eyes. Even if he had to expose the secret of his space, he wouldn't hesitate. Little Yellow was still sleeping in the space. The past few years seemed to have passed in the blink of an eye. Of course, Xiaohua also keenly sensed that Little Yellow had changed a little, even if these changes were really small. When Little Silver saw a spirit beast come in, the first thing it did was burrow into the spirit grass. It wasn't until it saw the duck, which was who knew how many times bigger than it, lying there quietly and motionlessly that it stuck half an eye out of the spirit grass. It looked at it curiously, but still didn't dare to fly out of the spirit grass. The spirit beast seemed to be seriously injured. Blue blood flowed out of its neck, but its eyes were closed the whole time. It didn't open the slightest bit. Of course, Xiaohua could also sense that when the spirit beast entered the space, its life force stopped flowing. Even if this isn't Dyer's body, it's still a spirit beast, an 8th grade spirit beast. It's rare to see one in the Dawn Rain continent. Those spirit grass weren't wasted. Xiaohua couldn't see any clues, so he could only comfort himself like this. It really won't do. I'll give it to Jiang Luer. Oh, or give it to Lier. Yes, give it to Lier. With such a spirit beast in my myriad Thunder Valley, we can suppress the Taiching sect. Thinking this, Xiaohua was about to withdraw his mind. At that moment, the duck's closed eye moved, and its long eyelashes trembled slightly. Oh! Xiaohua stopped again. He saw the duck open one of its eyes. In that large eye, there were slightly golden threads in its pupil. Good as expected. Xiaohua was delighted. This duck's eyes were too similar to Dyer's, especially when there was no resentment. The duck opened its eyes, and its pale yellow neck turned slightly, as if it was sizing up this space. It saw the spirit grass, the ripples of the lake, and the crackling sound of thunder in the distance, until it saw the silhouette of a sleeping Goldie in the distance. Quack! The duck was startled. It raised its head fiercely and opened its other eye with great difficulty. At that moment, Goldie stretched lazily, and its small body grew. It rolled a few times on the ground, and its small face rushed towards the duck. Then, it curled up and used its large tail to cover its body. Its eyes didn't even open as it fell asleep again. Quack! 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 The duck cried out a few times, but it didn't wake Goldie up. The duck's 2 slender legs exerted strength, trying to move towards Goldie. However, after a few slight movements, blood flowed out from its neck again, and the duck collapsed powerlessly on the ground. 2 sparkling and translucent teardrops flowed out from her eyes. A strange thing happened. The duck's body suddenly moved, and it landed beside Goldie. Its body was a few feet tall, and it was much bigger than Goldie. However, the duck was so pitiful. It lowered its head, which was about the same size as Goldie's, and stopped not far from Goldie. Only then did it close its eyes. It was as if this was the only place where it was safe. Only here would it not be killed by others. It should be Dyer without a doubt. Although Xiaohua couldn't be sure whether this duck was Dyer or not, he had a premonition in his heart. After all, Goldie didn't come out often, and those who saw Goldie were the ghosts of his subordinates, especially the spirit beasts, who had never seen Goldie before. If this duck wasn't Dyer, who could it be? Dyer was seriously injured and almost died. What about Her Majesty? Her cultivation is comparable to the spirit-severing stage. What happened to her? Could it be the Empress has fallen? Xiaohua thought of the Empress, and he couldn't help but feel anxious. It's a pity that this young master's cultivation is too weak. Even if I know the whereabouts of the Empress, I can't help her. I can only pray to the heavens to give the kind-hearted Empress good luck, and this young master can improve his cultivation as soon as possible. AI, the spirit-severing stage. Xiaohua became dejected. This is not the difference between the qi refining stage and the golden core stage. From the foundation stage to the spirit-severing stage. How long? I'm afraid the Empress has fallen long ago. Even if the empress has fallen, this young master will find the murderer and avenge her. Xiaohua became heroic again. A real man can support the heavens and the earth. Since I have received the grace of others, I must repay the grace with a drop of water and do my best to fulfill their wishes. Moreover, the dark flower that the empress spoke of seems to be related to me. Shanghua Ming. While Xiaohua was thinking, a dozen people appeared at the entrance of the tea house. It was Ziyi and the others. Ziyi entered the tea house, and without looking around, he went upstairs. Cough, cough. Fellow Taoist, you don't even have half a spirit stone now. If you go upstairs, what will you use to pay the bill? A lazy voice fell into Ziye's ears. Ziye's face showed ecstasy. He walked a few steps in front of Xiaohua and sized him up. He said word by word, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you made me regain my confidence in the people of this world. If I can't find you in this tea house, this young master will never trust anyone in this life." Haha, you don't have to be like this. Xiaohua got up and threw a spirit stone on the table. He pulled Ziye's hand and walked out of the tea house. -8. Chapter 2290. Xiaohua said as he walked, "The deceitfulness of the people of the world will not change because of this Zhao's kindness. The kindness of the people of the world will not change because of this Zhao's deceitfulness. The people of the world are the people of the world. This Xiao is this Xiao. Fellow Taoist Ziyi losing confidence in this Xiao will not affect the people of the world in the slightest. It can only change fellow Taoist Ziye's heart. Fellow Taoist Zai, you should comprehend as much as you can." "Yes, this little one understands." Ziyi smiled, but then he looked around and said, "This little one is now penniless. Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't you want to treat this little one to a cup of spiritual tea? Previously it was your spirit stones, so I drank it. Now it's I spirit stones. I am not that generous, throwing spirit stones on meaningless extravagance." At this time, Xiaohua had already brought Ziyi to the outside of the tea house. Ziyi did not understand and said with a smile, "This little one did not expect fellow Taoists to have so many spirit stones. Ha ha ha, no matter how many I have, it will not be as generous as fellow Taoist Ziyi. You actually gave your own storage pouch to this poor Taoist." Xiaohua reached out and took out Ziye's storage pouch, handing it over to Ziyi. "This is really beyond I's expectations." Ziyi took the storage pouch. He was surprised at first, but when he saw that there was not a single item missing from the storage pouch, his eyes almost fell out. You used your own things?" Ziyi could not help but moan. You, what about me?" Xiaohua said with a smile. He patted the storage pouch and took out a jade bottle. "This is for fellow Taoist Ziyi. However, you can only look and not speak." "What is this?" Ziye's surprise did not fade. He put away the storage pouch and took the jade bottle. When he saw the rejuvenation pill inside, he took a deep breath again. Just as he was about to speak, he remembered Xiaohua's warning and quickly shut his mouth. "Is one enough?" Xiaohua asked with a smile. Ziyi thought for a moment, then shook his head and said with a smile, "I'm afraid one is not enough, at least 4. Hee, you sure are greedy." Xiaohua had already said this several times, but he didn't hesitate in the slightest. He clapped his hands and took out another jade bottle, handing it over. "However, since fellow Taoist Ziyi wants to use it, how can I not take it out? It's true. This works?" Midnight was completely speechless, and he stuttered. After taking benefits from I, you have to do something for I," Xiaohua said with a smile. Ziyi raised an eyebrow and replied, "That's the reason. If fellow Taoist Xiao has any instructions, feel free to ask." "All right." Xiaohua clapped his hand and took out a storage bag. He whispered, "Here are the spiritual herbs that are useful to fellow Taoist Zai. They are for fellow Taoist Zai. Fellow Taoist Zai, please have your clan's disciples distribute the useless fine seeds to the nearby commoners. These fine seeds are very important to them." "While what? Common people of the secular world?" Ziyi couldn't imagine that Xiaohua would give him such a strange task. Moreover, he didn't understand it at all. "Fellow Taoist, you only need to distribute these rice seeds to them. You don't have to think about anything. Xiaohua knew that this disciple of a cultivation family definitely didn't know anything about farming, so he explained further. All right. Ziyi took the storage bag and scanned it with his divine sense. He suddenly understood. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you're using, fellow Taoist Ziyi knows. Xiaohua stopped Ziyi from speaking and raised his hand. Fellow Taoist Ziyi, it's better for you to leave Sky Patrol City quickly. Don't cause any trouble. Ziyi's heart trembled. He knew Xiaohua's intention and said proudly, Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't worry. It's just a golden core cultivator. I don't care. Once I leave the teleportation array, there will be people from my clan waiting for me. Oh? Xiaohua's eyes were smiling. He nodded and said, I reckon that fellow Taoist Ziyi has a good foundation, but I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I'm impressed. This is my keepsake. If we're fated, I can. Zi took out a keepsake from the storage bag and handed it to Xiaohua. Cough, cough. Fu Lu's throat swelled again. Hee. Zi laughed bitterly and said, If we're fated, you and I can still meet? All right. Xiaohua took the keepsake. It was a crystal-clear jade pendant. The inscription on it was quite strange. Xiaohua had never seen it before. However, he didn't have time to look at it carefully at this time. He kept it in the storage bag and took out a message talisman that he refined himself. This is my message talisman. If you come to Imperial Thunder Sect, you can send it to me. I understand. Zi took the message talisman and was reluctant to leave. Xiaohua nodded at him, cupped his hands, turned around, and left. Zi kept watching Xiaohua's back disappear in the wind and snow. Then, he said in disappointment, Xiaohua is indeed a strange person. This trip to Sky Patrol City is really worth it. Fu Lu, what do you think? Hee. Young master. I'm really blind. I really don't dare to say anything. It's really rare for young master to make friends with such a strange person. However, what's the jade bottle he gave you? Fu Lu smiled apologetically. Let's go. We'll talk about it after we get out of Sky Patrol City. Zi waved his hand, but his eyes swept around. He smiled and said, After we pass the dangerous gate, I'll let you see it. Yes, young master. Fu Lu naturally knew something. He spread his divine sense around, but he didn't see anything. After Ziyi went in the opposite direction, he saw the wave of spiritual power fluctuating under the eaves in the distance. Li Chengshu's figure flashed out, and he was wearing a strange robe. How could it be Xiaohua? How could he have so many spirit stones? Li Chengshu's face was full of astonishment. If this old man hadn't seen through the confusion of the aristocratic family's young servant and followed behind them, how could I have known that the cultivator who made this old man lose face was actually a mere Foundation establishment cultivator? Oh, Xiaohua is related to the 3 elders of Blazing Fire Mountain. The 3 nascent soul stage seniors even specially supported this guy. Could it be? He's working for Blazing Fire Mountain? Li Chengshu had some understanding, but then he was somewhat puzzled. If Blazing Fire Mountain interferes with this beast cultivator, Huaping of Blazing Fire Mountain should also appear. She's in the conference hall like me. Humph. I'm afraid that Blazing Fire Mountain doesn't want to fall out with my Xianlu sect, so they let Xiaohua deliberately mystify things. This Xiaohua is a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect, but he works for Blazing Fire Mountain. He's really shameless. If Qianemo knew, wouldn't he lose face? No matter what, since I know it's Xiaohua, and he didn't give the storage bag to the person just now, I have to find a way to get the soul as soon as possible. If I don't have a chance within 10 days, I'm afraid that the soul will scatter. I have to keep an eye on Huaping to prevent her from sending the beast cultivator's body out of Sky Patrol City. Thinking of this, Li Chengshu's face showed a ruthless expression. Xiaohua is really hateful. He actually killed me in front of countless cultivators. If it's someone else, there's naturally the 3 elders of Blazing Fire Mountain watching over him. But in Sky Patrol City, it's a sword battle. It's too easy to lose a disciple in the early stage of Foundation establishment. Immediately, Li Chengshu's figure flew up and slowly flew in the direction Xiaohua went. He seemed to be looking for Xiaohua, but also seemed to be returning to the conference hall. After Li Chengshu left, on the other side of the street, which was the opposite side of the tea house, there were also ripples. Moreover, The ripples of magic power were even smaller, almost inaudible. Xiaohua's figure was also revealed. Hee, sure enough, it's just as I expected. Xiaohua's face was the same as Li Chengxiu's. There was also a smile. Li Chengxiu is a gold core stage cultivator, so he can see through Midnight's confusion. Maybe he can't see clearly, but it's enough to pay attention. He really did follow Midnight to the tea house. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been deliberately mystifying and would have directly waited for Midnight in front of the EG. Since this guy knows it's me who did it, he will definitely make some moves. I still have to be careful and be on guard. I don't want to fall into his trap. Xiaohua's figure flashed slightly and disappeared again. Fortunately, I just appeared in the tea house, otherwise this guy will definitely make trouble for Midnight. It's also strange. Which aristocratic family does Midnight belong to in the Three Kingdoms? He's not even afraid of a gold core stage cultivator? I don't know even if I break my head. Xiaohua returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment. He didn't see any obstacles outside the gate, nor did he see Li Chengxiu's figure. Xiaohua checked the token and went in. When he passed through the restriction and entered the attic, he was stunned. Apart from Cui Hongshan, who was on duty, who was also present, apart from the two members of the first squad, the captain of the second squad, Qian Yuan, who had previously caused trouble, and that short disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace were also present. Seeing Xiaohua come in, these two people immediately got up and cupped their hands in salute, saying, Qian Yuan, Qian greets junior brother Xiao. In, greetings, senior brothers. Xiaohua stopped and cupped his hands in salute, saying with a smile, you two sit down and talk as you please. I still have to cultivate, so I won't accompany you too. Don't be impatient, junior brother Xiao. Qian Yuan simply didn't care about Xiaohua ignoring him. He stretched out his hand and said with a smile, sit down first. I still have something to tell fellow Taoist Xiao. With me? Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand, saying, I'm just a disciple of the first squad. What can you tell me? Everything should be discussed with our Captain Cui. Xiaohua. Cui Hongshan berated in a low voice. Senior brother Qian is the captain of the second squad after all, and also a senior brother of my Heavenly Thunder Palace. How can you leave without even listening? That's very disrespectful. You're also throwing the face of my Myriad Thunder Valley. All right. Seeing Cui Hongshan mention the Myriad Thunder Valley, Xiaohua had no choice but to nod and say, Senior brother Qian, please tell me. I won't sit down. Hurry up and tell me. I really want to cultivate. Many thanks, junior brother Xiao. Qian Yuan was very happy and cupped his hands in salute. -8.